down in the dirt.
Right, welcome to Brewtime, Dave. Great to finally get a chance to chat to you.
And to you, Bruce, thanks for the invite. This is, mate, this is unusual for me. This isn't my comfort zone in any way, shape, or form. I'm usually in your place asking the questions and getting the stories and everything else. So, yeah, this is new, and I'm really looking forward to it. So thanks again for the invite. That's really kind of you. Hopefully, you'll be able to find some proper guests soon.
My absolute pleasure. I've wanted to chat with you for ages, so I was chuffed when you said yes. You're a hard man to research. Excuse me. You're a hard man to research. Normally, like there's loads of podcasts of people that you can listen to, and just do a little bit of a background sort of not check, but a background bit of research on people.
Check. You're right. That's exactly what it is.
I know. Yeah. But you're quite aloof. Trying to find anywhere where you're actually talking about yourself and not being the interviewer is tough.
Because it's not about me. It's about the guests. I'm very lucky to do what I do. And I think I've always set off with that thought in mind that I'm not the star of the show.
Yeah.
The guests are the star of the show. I'm just a bloke who's worked his ass off. That's about as close to swearing as I'll get. Has worked his backside off to get to where we are. Yeah. And it's the guests that have made Off Track and previously Motopod what it is. But yeah, that one podcast that I did with Jennifer, and that was her idea to go, your podcast is becoming really well watched. So do you not think you ought to do a show about yourself? I'm like, yeah, well, And then people wondering like, who is Dave Neal? How does he get to do this? What on earth has he got to do? Who is he?
It got good feedback though, the one you did with Jen, didn't it?
Yeah, really pleased with it because I was completely reticent about it. It's not for me. Oh, I hope. We've only just started. Let's have a look at this.
Speaking of the devil.
Yeah, here she is.
Hi,
you
Jen.
Can't do that. It's going to reflect.
How are you? You're right.
She can't hear you. It's right through the headphones.
All right, no problems. No worries.
We'll put that on the socials. Mate. We'll promote this and promote Brew Time as much as we can.
Awesome, mate. Much appreciated. Right, okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself then. Obviously, you're the host of the Off Track podcast. You've got a background in journalism, but like, how did you get to where you are now?
God, how far back do you want me to go? How long have we got? What?
As long as you want. I've got all the time in the world, mate. You've got 7.5 hours to beat Mossy. So,
which is ridiculous. That is, I don't even know. I mean, I do know how he does that because I know how well he can talk. I have been a huge fan of motorcycle racing since I can remember. I'm 53 years old now. And I remember being at Cadwell Park in the very, very late 70s, watching Will Hartog and Barry Sheene and Mick Grant and Reg and the rest of that era of riders, Ron Haslam. And I can distinctly remember it now. I did a little drop in on a friend of mine's podcast earlier this week who was asking, earliest memories on the Elbows Down chat with Jimmy. And he basically asked the same question, like, what's your earliest memory? And I distinctly remember going up onto the edge of Chris Curve at Cadwell Park and seeing Will Hartog go past in his white leathers and the red, white and blue of the Netherlands colours. And he won I can see it plain as day. He won a fruit machine that day. And really? For the life, I can't remember, it was 78 or 79, but they all got their little brown paper envelopes and brown paper bags from Charlie at the end of the day. But yeah, I think one of the sponsors was a fruit machine company, and Will Hartog won a fruit machine. He's like, no, I'm not a gambling man. And he didn't take it because he obviously got a decent payout for being there. But I remember there used to be the park across in the middle where the Med Centre is now. There used to be swings and a slide at Cadwell Park. And I remember going to Mallory Park after that, and then just became a lifelong fan of motorcycle racing. Barry Sheene was my earliest hero, as he was for an awful lot of people in our generation. And it went on then to Freddie Spencer and to Wayne Gardner, Mick Doohan, not specifically the Hondas, but they were Honda riders at the time, but also our own boys as well that were out there, that like Neal and Rob Mack and Reg, Roger Burnett. The mid 80s and the late 80s were outstanding. But then, Dave, that will never change. I am first and foremost a fan of motorcycle racing. Yes, I've been very fortunate to do what I do over the last 12 or 14 years. I'll explain that as we get nearer the time, because I guess I spoke to a very good friend of mine who works in the paddock and who works on the journalist side. And he said to me before, he said, your story is, these are his words, not mine. He said, your story is quite special because you are a fan who's worked hard and made good. You haven't come through journalism college. You haven't come through the media. You've literally forged your own path, which kind of made me really proud because I never really thought of it that way. But heading off after school, heading off into the RAF, I did 4 years at RAF Prize Norton, 3 years at Cranwell. Came out a little bit early, headed into estate agent for a few years, then into manufacturing. I was a printer for 15 years.
What did you do in the RAF?
I was assistant air traffic control. So I was, my trade was assistant air traffic control, but I was a flight planner by job. So we were getting the route bags ready, especially at Bryce, which is a 24-hour global military airport, for want of a better phrase. And we looked after flights that went over to Australia, that went to Hong Kong, that went to the Falklands twice a week with the TriStars, that went to Washington Dulles twice a week on the VC-10s, as well as training exercises as well. They went to Germany a couple of times a week. The troops were still in Northern Ireland at the time, so there was Belfast Aldergrove flights. So it was busy times, 24/7, working shifts, 4 on, 4 off. And then at Cranwell, it was the point where Finningley had just closed and they moved the multi-engine training school and the nav school from Finningley to Cranwell. So they needed a new flight planning unit setting up because they'd only had Central Flying School, which were the really small, the little grob tutors that were flying. So they were just local area. But this was then in support of Northern Europe and a bit further beyond. And they didn't have anybody with that experience. And I just come from Bryce Norton through global flight planning. And they asked, as maybe just a month or so after getting there, will you help us set this up? So we did, which was really cool. And then 15 years in manufacturing, printing, food packaging, direct contact food packaging. So your salad bags.
How did you move from air traffic control in the military to that?
Oh man, it's a weird old story. And it involved a female. So I came out early because I didn't want to get posted off to the Falklands. I didn't want to get posted to the north of Scotland. So I did 7 of my 9 years and decided it was time for a career change. And one of the first jobs I applied for was a state agency. The area manager liked the fact that I was ex-military, and somebody summed this up beautifully the other day. I saw it and I won't forget it. It's on time in the military is 5 minutes early. So, and I still to this day, I am uber punctual. I can't get out of it, and I never will, and I don't want to.
Yeah, no, I've got to admit, I can let that slip massively. A lot of my lot that come away on tours and the clan meets and stuff that I do, I think I'm a lot better in the last couple of years, but there was, I think when I left the old Bill, there's a couple of years of just going, and I'd be like, I'll be there on time. And yeah, I was either like half hour early or I'd be 5-10 minutes late. It's just, I could never get it on, but I'm getting there. Sorry.
As long as you can deal with that. See, I can't deal with that. As like, if you're comfortable with it, then all power to you. I have no problem with that at all.
I'm not, because I hate it when other people are late. So it's like, you need to step up for your smart, sort your life out.
You can't have your cake and eat it, can you?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I suppose you can. You can. You've earned the right to do that, mate. You're fine.
I do like cake.
I wish I'm doing a no sugar February. Apart from, I only have sugar in coffee. I don't have it in tea. So I'm going through February with no sugar. So basically no chocolate, no biscuits, things like that.
What's the point of living, Dave?
Mate, I know. Tell me about it. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, I was going to say, do you have a tipple of choice? But I see you've got a brew on the go.
I have.
I have a little beer on the go.
On.
So
I've just turned my lights off.
It's all right. No worries. Stand by. Technical issue, people. Technical issue.
There we are.
And he's back.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No
I
worries.
just kicked the cable.
Here's
And
to
to
your
you, sir. And to you, sir. Thank you again.
Folks, we've got a new sponsor for the podcast, and that is Super Shield Auto. Now, Super Shield Automotive provide the very best service in detailing, paint correction, and ceramic coating, your pride and joy. They can also supply and fit products from many suppliers such as Chiggy, Akropovich, Hex, Denali, Visa, and many more. Get in touch for details, and don't forget to mention TeapotOne for a discount. So head to their website, which is just supershieldauto.co.uk. You'll be able to see there they do discounts for lots of those products and loads more coming online as well. So make sure you check that out. And if you love being around bikes and cars, then they're currently looking for someone to join them full time. Full training's given and a van is provided with a competitive salary. Get in touch at info@supershieldauto.co.uk for more details. Folks, if you've seen any of my bike wash or ceramic coating vids on the main TeapotOne channel, that's my mate Pete from Super Shield Auto. He owns the whole company. You can see from his work, he's a top man. If you fancy getting involved in that line of work, he is your man. Check that out. And a massive thanks to Super Shield Automotive for sponsoring the podcast. Beautiful. Yeah, so you came out of the military then and into manufacturing.
Yeah. I think that was, I know, these are a weird career progress. I don't think I ever really settled in various places. And I was always, I tell you exactly, the older I am now, when you have 20/20 vision and you can look back and you go, you were chasing something that wasn't there. I always wanted to be something else. I mean, at the time that I went into manufacturing, it was, we'd got our first mortgage. My daughter was really young. My stepson was only a couple of years older. And it was one of well, okay, you can earn this by chasing this and by doing this commission and everything else. Or we can go and work. It was my next door neighbor, Kev, at the time, who worked at the same place and said, look, we're taking on. And it was an old friend of mine who did the interview, and the Old Boy Network did its thing. But did I really fit into that kind of way of life? Maybe not. But coming from the military, and it's a little bit, it was a great place to work with great people, but it was a regular income with overtime, and the money was good. So it was about standard of living at that point. And my wife at the time, then we decided to move into a bigger place, and which then 2 years after that was the financial crash in 2008, which then changed the whole landscape, which is still changed to this day, which still hasn't really recovered, has it? So that was the way to go forward into it. Then the relationship went by the by, sadly, I think partially to my to the invention of Twitter. And that's the key. That is the key. But that's the relationship went by the by in 2015. A couple of years after that, Jen and I met. So by that point, I was living in Lincolnshire, a little town called Gainsborough in Lincolnshire. That's my hometown, where my daughter still lives with her mum, and my mum still lives over there. And Jen and I got together. An opportunity came up to move over here, to voluntary redundancy from the manufacturing place. I got a job over here at just north of Blackburn. I live just north of Burnley now, in a little village called Barrowford, Neal Hodgson's home village,
Gotcha.
for those who know Neal. And I got a job at a cardboard box manufacturing printing place. Did 18 months there, ended up running one of the shifts. And then Al Gardner rang and said, you're coming to work for me. So then I ended up at OMG Racing for 2 seasons. And then the podcast came along, and here we are.
So what were you doing? What did you start doing at OMG Racing then?
I was their press officer for 2 years.
So where's the move from working in fabrication manufacturing, estate agency, then how did the move into PR and press and journalism and all that sort of stuff? How did that come about?
So here's the hook to that. Twitter is the key to all of this. We would not be sat having this conversation now, and I wouldn't be sat in this house with the relationship with the beautiful lady downstairs that I have if it wasn't for Twitter. Everything goes back to that.
Wow.
So we rewind back now. So that's the work side of it. That's the kind of the boring, that's my background. That's my life, if you like. For the motorcycle racing side, when Twitter was invented, and when it was in its early days, you could talk to anybody and have conversations before behavior and entitlement became the fore, as it is today with painting with a broad brush. Let's say painting with a broad brush.
I'm reading you loud and clear, Dave. I'm reading you loud and clear.
Thank you. Yeah. So we don't need to go too deep into that, but you understand where I'm coming from. Yeah. You could have conversations with so many people. So even going back to 2012, when Twitter first started, you would have conversations with Ian Wheeler and with Charlie Hiscott and people within the paddock, a couple of the riders. One of the other guys I became really good friends with was Alex Briggs, who worked on the front of Valentino's bike for many, many years with Jerry Burgess and the rest of the team at Honda and then Yamaha and Ducati. And while that came on, that's kind of what took my attention. Twitter became an obsession. And I can look back now to me sitting on one sofa and my wife at the time sitting on the other sofa. And it didn't register because that was the goal I was chasing. I want this to lead somewhere. These are the people that I want to spend time with. These are the people I want to be in a circle of. Yeah. Because this is my passion. My other passion, as I've already is Sheffield United. So without losing any viewers really quickly, I am one of those who has a passion for motorcycle racing and a passion for football. And I make no apology for it. I am who I am, and I can deal with it. So, with the invention of Twitter, there became it was called Paddock Chatter, which was a Twitter feed that posted news. We did little quizzes. There was Guess the Rider, which a gentleman called Wiggy San from Leeds basically coloured helmets out, and you had to guess the rider, and there was some real curveballs in there. It was the early days. People talk today about engagement and reach and things like that, and that's exactly what we were doing 12 years ago. Set up by a fine gentleman from Macclesfield and Wilmslow Way called Tim Teal. He brought in myself and Matt Dunn, and then Ollie Rushby and Alana Fellows joined. Now, at this point, they were all fresh out of university in their early 20s. And then I'm here at 38, 39, 40 years old with a hefty mortgage and 2 young kids. Yeah. So I'm at a completely different level to what they are. So I remember my daughter was a competitive swimmer. So I remember being up at the local pool, sat up on top of sat on the balcony, watching down, and I'm kind of looking down at Twitter and conversing and then watching her training and thumbs up and all that kind of thing. And when Tim invited me into that enclave of Paddock Chatter, that was the first step into the BSB paddock, into the world of the background of motorcycle racing. And it was through Twitter that I got introduced to Jordan Weaving, who came over from South Africa. And we took on not a management role as such, but a little advisory role, helping him around the paddock, trying to help with sponsorship, helping him with his social media in 2013, 2014, and 2015. That I worked with Jordan, and I worked with Josh Elliott as well through Jules, which was set up through Ian Wheeler. The first bit of journalism I ever did was courtesy of Ian Wheeler, which was a 4-page interview in the Old Motorcycle Racer magazine with Scott Redding. And I did my own blog, which was courtesy of Jared Earl. When I was like, how do you start writing a blog? He said, just start. He said, your first 1,000 words will be Tom Tit, but after that, you'll be all right. And it was at that point of everybody was slating Casey Stoner and nobody was kind of watching what Mark was doing. Everything was Valentino. And it's like, you are missing a trick by not appreciating what Casey does and what Mark can do, and it's all Valentino. So that then led on to working with, as we said, with Josh Elliott. Josh Elliott went to ride for OMG Racing in 2018 after winning two Superstock titles. He won one Superstock title for Morello Racing. And then when OMG started in 2018, they had a young rider, Ben Luxton, who's still out there now on their Superstock. It didn't quite work out. Josh lost his ride and went to OMG, won their first ever race at Brookston, met Al Gardner, became great friends with the team. At the point, he said, one day you are going to come and work for me. And then in April 2021, you come into work for me.
Wow.
And became their press officer. 21, 22, when we won the championship with Brad Ray. That was one of those moments where it's like, Neal, you find yourselves in the weirdest of places. And then at the end of that year, we had the opportunity to take a punt on building the podcast with the help of a good friend, Tom Large, and his Graph Ventures company. And that's what we've done for the last 3 years. So as a potted history of where we get to, you can pick the bones out of that, mate.
So this podcast is powered by Conqueror's Motorcycle Apparel, a biker's clothing shop built by bikers, run by bikers, for people who actually ride. No corporate nonsense, no guessing games, just riders who know their kit inside and out. Walk through the door or jump online and you'll get nothing but 5-star service. The kind where someone actually listens, knows the gear, and won't flog you rubbish just to make a sale. For an independent shop, the range punches well above its weight. Helmets, riding gear, casual wear, and the bits you didn't know you needed until a proper biker pointed them out. And if you're shopping online, here's the kicker. Use Fisters10. Yes, Fisters10 at checkout for 10% off, because good gear should come with a bit of respect. Conqueror's Motorcycle Apparel, built by bikers, backing bikers. You can check out their website at conquerorsapparel.co.uk, or if you're down near St Leonard's on the south coast of England, pop along to the shop, stick your head in and say hello. Isn't it? I'm always fascinated, because I have people on this podcast from not just anything to do with bikes or anything to do with travel. I've had folk from all sorts of different places on, as long as I've got a story to tell. And I'm always fascinated about people's journey in life that's got them to where they're at. And it's always the people that seem to make it's the wrong word, but you know what I mean? The people who seem to achieve their dreams or attain a level that they're striving for. They've always just they've just gone for it. There might not have been any perceived direction at the start, but they've reached out and grabbed an opportunity when it's come, and they've just gone for it. It might not have felt the right, maybe it probably did feel the right thing at the time, but it wasn't the direction that they were going. And an opportunity's arisen and they've gone for it, and it's taken them a different direction. And I chat about adventure travel's very much like that. You know, you're going this way, something happens, you meet somebody and you're going that way, but that then takes you on a different adventure, and you meet different people, you see other things that you hadn't planned on seeing, and you can draw the similarities in everyday life with that, in that you just got to go for it, haven't you?
Grasp the nettle and
absolutely
say yes to everything. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, grasp the nettle. I've never heard that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, 100%. Grasp the nettle. Get on with it. And it was a very good friend of mine who used to work for Honda, Mark Beckley. And his motto in life is JFDI. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. You learn, and I'm a big believer that you meet so many people along life's journey. And what I know, one of the great things of talking to you is we can go down this route, and we can get a little bit deep and understanding people.
I love it.
The journey of life that we take. I've said it on the podcast so many times, and I know if there are regular listeners that are listening to this now, they know what's coming. We are the sum parts of everybody we've ever met.
Yep.
And you will not change my mind on that. Some good, some bad, some indifferent, but everybody leaves their mark in some way, shape, or form. And it's what you do with the marks that they leave that defines the path going forward. But there is no plan. There was no plan for me to end up doing the podcast. And the same, we've missed a reasonable chunk out with Motopod, because that was running along the side as well, which was my first foray into podcasting, which again came through Wiggy-san in Leeds with an American podcast with the good Lord Martin Darlington, the late Jim Race, Jules Chisek. They were the original guys that were doing it, and this was conversational podcasting. And I then decided to bring in, they were conversating, but Jim did some great interviews as well. And I learned a lot from Jim in his approach to interviews, and he was so relaxed and so chilled out. It's taken me a little while because our early interviews were done over Skype, and there was that really short delay. And there were so many times that I would start talking over somebody, and that's really poor form. But there wasn't anything I could do because there were no visual clues. And that then was that started with a phone call of, would you mind going down to Silverstone and doing a couple of interviews for us? And if you would like, we would like you to come on and co-host Motopod. My first ever podcast interview, fresh, you know what's coming here, fresh out of Lincolnshire, never really done apart from with Scott over the phone. Jorge Lorenzo in the factory Yamaha hospitality unit in 2013 at Silverstone was my first foray into podcast interviews, and I was shaking like a crapping dog. It's not my best work, but that was the first one we did. And then I went on to chat to Danny Kent in the back of the Tech 3 truck, and then Keith and Jules in the Urta Lounge. That was my first ever weekend doing podcast.
Now, I'm not going to ask you what you think of Jorge Lorenzo, but I'll give my take. I did not like the bloke. I've never met him before, ever, but I just didn't like him as a fan. And then he did his shoulder. Do you remember he did his collarbone? Yeah. I think he did his collarbone on the Friday, and then was it on the Sunday he was racing? And I think he finished. He flew
back to Barcelona, and Dr. Mia plated it and pinned it, and there he was coming back. I can see the picture now. I can see the video now of him on the Veenslang getting pinged off the front. Yeah.
And from then on, I don't know. I mean, not that he sat there listening to this going, oh, well, that's all right. The big fat lad, he's got respect for me. But I just remember thinking, okay, now fair play. Now that is commitment and strength of mind. Jeez. Incredible.
There aren't too many riders that I'm not keen on. And I don't think, I can't think off the top of my head that there are any.
Yeah, it's unfair to ask you that. I won't ask.
Yeah, no. If I don't get on with them, it's their problem, not mine. And you can't get on with everybody, especially not in that world of egos and butt hurt and things like that. But I have respect for them all because they're all faster than me. So that goes without saying. But yeah, it was a very, very unusual entry into the world of podcasting. And I think maybe 200 guests over more. I'd love to count it up. I've got a running list of all the guests that we've interviewed. The royal we that have interviewed over the years. And you look back and you're like, how? What? You've just... We're all winging it, aren't we? Nobody's got a plan. Nobody knows what they're doing. We are all winging it, and I am the embodiment of winging it.
It's funny. I had Tim Rodey. Have you heard of Tim Rodey? He's at Car and Bike Journal. I had him on the podcast last week, and that's exactly what he said. He said, we're all winging it. Everybody, from the highest CEO to the bin man, everyone's winging it. And just, as soon as you realise that, happy days, move on with life. And it's true, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. You can't have a plan these days. You never have a plan, and if you do, you have to be adaptable to change and everything else. So we just ride the wave, because let's see where it takes you. Yeah. And it's been a hell of a journey, and I have been incredibly lucky and in some very, very bizarre situations for a guy who is essentially just a massive fan of the sport.
As always, a huge shout out to all of you over in the clan, over on Patreon, patreon.com/TeapotOne. I keep saying this, folks, but literally I could not do this without your support. The YouTube millions certainly are avoiding me. So with people like you over in the clan, my tours, this podcast, merch, everything like that, that's what allows me to keep a roof over our heads. And we've built a pretty special little community there in the clan. We do rides throughout the year. We do some live streams. There's meetups. Check it out. Patreon.com/TeapotOne. See if it's your thing. You also get early access to my chicken strips tours, and you get first preference for the questions in this podcast. So thank you very much to all of you that get involved there. As always, if you're enjoying the podcast, tell a mate. Just tell them about it, share it, liking, subscribing, commenting, whether it's on the socials, the YouTube vids, or on the podcast platform, wherever it is that you listen. That really does have such a positive impact now on the algorithms and all these different platforms. That is what they respond to. So if you're enjoying it, please just engage, give us a comment, a like, a share. Let people know about Brewtime. Right, enough of that. Let's crack on with the chat. That's awesome, though, that, you know, you're a fan and you've got to this stage that you're at now where, you know, it's your living, and it's your passion, which is awesome. I'm in a similar position, but I do find I have to be very conscious not to go all in at it, in that it's my job and my living, but it's also what I enjoy doing. Like, I enjoy riding a bike, but I also enjoy editing and stuff like that. But I am conscious of the fact I need to not do that all the time, because you do just, I definitely got burnt out, I would say, last year. You just hit a point where you almost think, I don't think I'm enjoying this anymore, and maybe I should look at something else. But thankfully, you know, a little bit of time just to myself and sort a few things out, and, you know, I'm back at it. How do you deal with that now then? And that, you know, it's
balance, dear boy.
Yeah.
Balance. Because it has taken, it's taken the stuffing out of us lately. And I make no bones about it. We've gone to a show every couple of weeks, and I think we've only done 2 shows this year so far. I've been fortunate enough to spend a little bit of time up in Glasgow with David Molesdale and the Molesdale Foundation, doing a little bit of consultancy work up there on their social media and at the foundation. So that's given me a kind of a secondary view at the moment, which has been great. And it's been necessary, because from almost exactly 3 years ago, we have put an episode out every single week, I think bar 6 in 3 years. And I do same as you. I do everything. I plan the guests, I travel to the guests, I edit, and sometimes it's great, sometimes the audio isn't where I would like it to be. The audio is super cool tonight because I've got my Rodecaster to one side and we've got the great mics as you have, so it makes a massive difference to the audio quality. But yeah, learning social media with the help of Matt Dunn, having Ben Curry in on the early days was great, but Ben being a professional motorcycle racer makes it very difficult to get him pinned down.
Yeah. And
it just ended up as we were finding our feet in the early few months, and then all of a sudden you find your groove, you're in at BSB, you're involved with the riders and you're interviewing them. You build a reputation basically of not being a dick. And being courteous to everybody and respectful to everybody that you have on. I've never knowingly thrown anybody under the bus on the podcast. Every now and again, you'll get someone go, Dave, you should have asked this question, and Dave, you should have asked that question. And, you know, sometimes you're a bit vanilla, but that's how I want to be, because I would like the guest to come back on, and they're still only human. They still have feelings. They still have their own demons and things to deal with. So I'm not Jeremy Paxman, and I never will be. You get cues. You had the same thing with the great guests that you've had on. You get cues that somebody is willing to talk about something. Yeah. So then you just let them go. And if we get to that situation, and we had it with Tim Martin, he didn't want to speak about William Dunlop back in 2018, and that dreadful accident that the team were involved in, and Tim was, we moved over it straight away. Do you want to chat about that yet? No, thank you. No problem. Not an issue to me. The guests speak about what they want to speak about. I have my notes. I have my research on everybody. It doesn't matter how long I've known them, how close we are, or how distant we are. I will always research the guests. I will always have a structure in terms of a chronological structure, especially if it's a career review. Then we've got points that we need to raise, but we can always bring it back. We can tangent, but then we can bring it back. And that's been my main point, along with, after learning from the Skype days, and one that we'll come on to later on, I'm sure, a very strained interview that I really didn't enjoy, and I'm kicking myself ever since. Ask the question, STFU. So important.
Yeah.
So important.
Silence is golden, eh? Very powerful.
Nobody likes a silent pause, like in a job interview or something like that. If the interviewer doesn't say anything, the interviewee will fill the silence. And it's the same with the guests. Motorcycle racers are brilliant. They've all got an ego. They all have a story to tell. It's one of the easiest things of doing a motorcycle racing podcast. Excuse me, Ryder, can we sit down and talk about you for 45 minutes? You're damn right we can. No problem. What time and where? So they're all their own best subject. So it is kind of easy in that respect. But then you build up a rapport, you build up a profile of your own, the same way that you've done with your great show. And then you find your own niche, you find your own groove, you find your own flow. And that then becomes that becomes you. That the podcast then becomes you. As Brew Time is you, and you're the same person that people meet on the tours. I'm the same, I would like to think, that people meet in the paddock. There's no different. I'm not a superstar. I'm just really bloody lucky to do what I do. And it's through the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I go on about this all the time. It's integrity, isn't it? Like, if you don't have integrity, as a man, not even as a man, as a human being, you haven't got anything, because no one's going to believe anything you say. No one's going to have if someone thinks you're full of it, they're going to have no respect for you. So I
couldn't agree more.
I just don't see the point in BSing about stuff. It's like, if you don't agree with somebody, I'll mention it, but I don't want to be an arsehole about it. Do you know what I mean? And you'll give someone the option to counter it. It's like, okay, I'm thinking this. Give me your opinion here. Yeah. And if you're not going to see eye to eye, fine. But there's no point in. You see some people getting arsey about stuff and all sorts, don't you?
There is nothing I care enough about to be concerned about or upset by somebody's opinion differing to mine. I have no problem with it at all. You get it on the podcast. You may have it on yours sometimes, where you maybe said something and somebody disagreed, and you're full of shit. You're doing this, and like, do you know what? It's fine. You're entitled to that. No problem. You carry on as long as Jen's okay, as long as my mum's okay, and her mum and dad are okay, and my daughter is okay. I'm pretty cool with the world.
I do bite comments sometimes. Sometimes I'm okay. I can just let the water run off my back, so to speak. But there's times when it just gets me, and I'm like, nah, you're having this. It's like, you wouldn't say that if I was stood in front of you. So let's discuss this and let's figure something out. And sometimes,
go on, sorry.
Sometimes you can start a bit of dialogue in the comments, and I've said this umpteen times. Somebody can reply and go, whoa, that wasn't what I meant. You've taken that the wrong way. And you then, you can then have like a civil bit of discourse in the comments. Other times they come right back at you, and you just end up with this, my dad's bigger than your dad thing. And it's like, oh, okay, screw up. We'll leave that, move on.
There's only been one guy, and considering we're coming up to nearly, if we may have passed it over the last day or two, but we're certainly very, very close to 2 million views on YouTube now.
Wow.
And which I'm super proud of in 3 years. But that's down to the quality of the guests. The one guy absolutely battered me because he thought I was very negative about Glenn Irwin. And I don't ever remember being negative about Glenn Irwin, but Glenn and I get on fabulously well. He did throw me under the bus at Brands Hatch at the end of last year on the Ixon fan stage, but I have forgiven him for that. He was a little bit upset because he was 35 minutes late. And we told him that it's okay, you don't have to come up, but the powers that be said, no, you're going. So he wasn't in the best of moods. And I completely understand that. And you do exactly what you say. You get into the comments, and I will always back myself. I will always explain myself. If something isn't right, or somebody said, well, you should have done this, and why didn't you do that? And this is a bit rubbish, or that was a bit like, do you know what? That was a situation. That's why that happened. I apologize if you feel that way, but this is why it happened. And I never, ever go out my way to upset or bet anybody or annoy anybody. Life's too short. This is the only run we get at this. So pick your battles. But exactly what you say. So, and almost everybody, apart from that fella, has gone, oh, all right, Dave. No, I understand that. No, thanks for clarifying it. Like, you're welcome. Enjoy the show. And that ends it. Because like you say, once you go back to them and explain the reason why, this social media, even though I work in social media and it's an integral part of the job and engagement and building a community and things like that, the propensity of people to fire a reply that as much as they maintain that they would say it to your face, they absolutely wouldn't.
Yeah.
That you can fire it on social media and not think that it has an effect on people. Very, very misguided. And that's where now social media has changed so much. If my time was now at however old I was at that point, 30, 38 years old, something like that, 39 years old, I couldn't do now what I did then to be in the position now, 13, 14 years later, because the whole landscape of social media has changed, and it was of its time, and we've used it to its best ability. It's got me a beautiful girlfriend. It's got me with some amazing friends and acquaintances and situations that I have that I completely adore, and would a fair few of them I'd walk over hot coals for them because they've extended courtesy and trust and support to me through my journey. And I'm very, very fortunate to walk through the paddock and know 90% of pit lane, you know. And one of the early stories, I'll share a couple of stories with you if you don't mind.
Of course.
And the early days of Jen and I being together, we went down to Silverstone for MotoGP, and we're walking through the paddock, and all of a sudden this scooter screeches up alongside us. And I won't do the accent because it usually ends up Welsh for whatever accent I'm trying to do. So I'm not going to offend our friends in Wales.
I really want to hear it now.
By doing an Australian accent that comes out like it's from Carmarthen. But this old fella turns up on a scooter, pulls up, and he's like, "G'day, Dave." And he's like, Wayne, how are you? Good to see you, mate. Everything okay? And Jen's looking at me going like, that's Wayne Gardner. He's literally just pulled up next to you to say. I said, yeah, we've done a couple of 3 or 4 podcasts over the years.
How cool is that, man?
We've got to know each other. And, you know, there is a massive danger in this conversation for an awful lot of clangs, for name drops. But I'm a podcast host, and they're my guests. So
yeah, that's your world. That's your world, isn't it?
It is. But
it's like me talking about my blooming world trip. It's part of me, so it's going to come up in conversation. So same with you.
And that's exactly what happened. We'd walk around. We'd said cheerio to Wayne, and we'd had a good chat with him. And Jen's like, "That's just ridiculous." And as we walked around the toilet block and in the middle of the paddock, the Yamaha garage was always at the bottom of the alleyway where the main toilet block is. So Valentino could get straight out of the gates, out to his motorhome with the minimum of fuss.
Yeah.
And I think it was Saturday. It might have been Friday or a Saturday afternoon. I can't remember which one it was. And we were walking down, and AB, Alex Briggs, is cleaning some of the fairings, and you just got him to look over and gave him a wave and waving back. He was busy, so we didn't bother him. And then we walked around the corner towards the little cafe that's there, the Paddock Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
So they were only a couple of doors down from the Paddock Cafe. And as we got there, he goes, Dave. And Jen was like, oh, God, he's only come out to say hello. So there's myself and Jen, there's Alex Briggs, and then Matt Roberts joins us, who was covering MotoGP at the time. And I'm sort of going, yeah, no, right. And then Jen stood there going like, what on earth is going on? And it all went from there. We just find ourselves in some random positions with random situations. Sorry, not positions. Positions is completely the wrong word. Although Matt Roberts is a huge man crush of mine. We find ourselves in some incredible situations, courtesy of the podcast and just being ourselves. Because maybe we could have done things sooner. Maybe we could have gone further. I don't know. I don't know what further is, Bruce. I don't know what is beyond here. I don't know where the future lies. I'm in this modern world, and to quote Matt from when we did an interview with him in Manchester a couple of years ago, he's at that point he said, I'm a 43-year-old white male. My opportunities are limited going forward. And that was 3 years ago. So for me as a 53-year-old white male, I don't know what the opportunity, but it's motorcycle racing. It's not BBC. It's not national or international broadcasting who have their reasons and their ways and means of doing things through inclusivity and diversity and everything else, which is absolutely fine. But fortunately, in motorcycle racing, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
And I like to think that we got the Ixon job last year. Stuart Higgs was kind enough to offer me the paddock show, the BSB fan zone paddock stage job last year that we did for 7 rounds, interviewing riders from the support classes and BSB. And he wouldn't have offered me that if he didn't think I was right, because Stuart has his finger on the pulse of everything. And I'd like to think we did a great job, because I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was interesting what you said there about the opportunities are limited. Do you not kind of think that I would imagine that's absolutely the case through traditional media? But you're setting your own path here. Like on social media and through the podcast, and you're out there making things happen, and you are your end product. So like you're a success because of who you are, not what you look like, or it's you as a person, and you is how you interact with your guests, and obviously other people within the paddock and within the industry. They like you. They see a worth of being involved with you and integrating you into, that world where you're excelling at the moment. And there's not really, as an outsider, there's no limits to that, because, as long as you keep being you're just going to, and doing the great work that you do, you're just going to be attracting more and more listeners and viewers and a bigger community, and your brand just grows and grows and grows, doesn't it?
It does. And thank you for your kind words. That they mean a lot. That's exactly what I strive to do. I have this, I've had it ever since I was a kid, whether it comes from my mum, whether it comes from the situation that I was in as a kid, with my mum and dad separating when I was 8, and her boyfriend, who then came in for 8 years, was kind of Victorian in his outlooks, which is one of the reasons why I joined the RAF. But I've managed to temper it, I think, a little bit nowadays. The older I get, the not the less I care, but the less important it becomes. That I've always had this desire to be liked. I like being liked. I don't like people thinking ill of me for whatever reason. And I don't like to be in that position where somebody would think, as you walk through the paddock or down the street in the local village or in the local pub or something like that, and to look across and go, he's a dick. it's my biggest fear. Now, whether anybody watching that thinks I am, I can live with that. I can deal with it. But I think that's been the staple part of who I am and how I am with as many people as I can, because I think it's important to be liked. It's important to make people feel good, more so in this day and age than ever before. Everybody likes a compliment. Everybody likes it. You know, so how are you? What's going on with you? And what's going on in your world? Or if we've had a situation over the last couple of months with one of my great friends, and his relationship has gone south, and we've been in constant touch to make sure, and he's doing okay. His job is fine. His situation now, he has to pick up the baton and take the company on himself and go off into the world of motorcycle racing and doing his own thing. And I'm super proud of him. He's much younger than I am, but that's the other great thing, as I slightly digress. The other great thing about this sport is age doesn't matter in any way, shape or form. I can talk to Max Cook, who's 22, 23 years old, right, to Shaky, to Jason O'Halloran, to some of and Brooksy, as some of the older boys, and the ones in between, like your Tommy Bridewells and the ones that are coming up into their 30s, and your Brad Rays and your Carl Rides. Age doesn't matter. They're just riders. Yet some of them are senior riders, some of them are junior riders, but age doesn't come into it, and it doesn't come into it for me either, because as long as you've got the knowledge, the presence, and the personality, nothing matters, because you've got guys that are in that pit lane that have been in that paddock 35, 40 years, and they're still doing it. They're still throwing tires around. They're still throwing spanners around. There is nothing they haven't seen, and you have to respect that. I've always been, I guess it's deferential, the word. I've been deferential to everybody in the paddock because they have the experience, not me. And now I'm in that position where I have experience, but they've all still been there longer than I have. So they have my utmost respect. And just as we go through this, Brie, if I go off on a tangent and I don't answer the question that you've asked, that's my inexperience as a guest. So make sure you remind me of the question.
Dave, this, you said that you have structure and everything in your podcast. I don't. I literally hit record, and I treat this like we're down the pub having a chat.
Yeah, perfect. You know, I am all over that.
So I love going off on tangents. It's brilliant. We'll start talking about aliens soon. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And I'm game for anything, mate. I have no problem. There are no. This is the greatest version of what you see is what you get.
Yeah, brilliant. That's what we want. In my head, what I'm thinking is, as an outsider with very limited knowledge of racing and like the paddock and that world, it always struck me that anyone I did know who was around that area always remarked about how it can be quite secretive and people can be very guarded about, you know, especially paddock politics and team politics and everything like that. And what strikes me is that, you know, I've watched a lot of your podcast episodes with lots of different riders and team members and managers, loads of people, you know, from a broad spectrum within that world. And everyone is very, or certainly appears to be very open and at ease with you. And, you know, that's an achievement, I'd imagine, on your behalf, to be that person that people are comfortable around so that they can relax and have that conversation with you without thinking, you know, as you said before, is he going to throw me under the bus? What could be the consequences of what I'm away to say? No doubt that's in people's minds, obviously, but they come across as very relaxed to talk to you.
Thank you. And that means a lot, because that's something that has grown organically. I think I treat all my guests with the respect that they deserve, and even standard things, please and thank you, and not making demands of them. Would you mind? Is it possible? When would you be free? And one of the biggest biggest things that I have that, as we talk about manners, you will never catch me shaking hands sitting down. If somebody comes across to say, I know we have on the
Stand
podcast
up.
when we've said thank you, I will always, even if I just make an effort to show that kind of thing, because manners cost nothing. And
manners make the man. That's what
they
I was
do.
always brought up to.
I could not agree more. And I think part of what we do with the podcast, part of the reputation that I've grown over the last, I keep saying 3 years. It's not. It's 12 and a half years. September 2013 was the first time when those interviews went out from Silverstone. And I think because of that deferential nature that isn't put on, these are all guys that I look up to. They are all significantly faster than me. So it's not my point to go, well, why didn't that happen? And why did you do this? They are all, almost every rider, we're all on the spectrum, aren't we? Everything has a label these days, which is a whole podcast all on its own. So every rider has their own nuances. Mm-hmm. And when you get to know them and you're talking to them and you understand it, you know what makes them tick. You can't have the same conversation with Christian Hidden that you could maybe have with Tommy Bridewell, because they're completely different characters. And each one is treated like an individual. And I maybe wouldn't have the same conversations with Roger Burnett that I would with Roger Marshall, because Roger Marshall, or Reg as he's more affectionately known, and it makes it easier to differentiate between the two. Reg had a fantastic career and has so many stories from racing, whereas Roger he took a lot more interest in the commercial side. He admitted it on the last podcast. If he applied himself to his racing more, he would have more likely been more successful. But he didn't. He had the eye on the commercial side, and everything was well presented. How he got his nickname of Hairnet, because everything was immaculate. Everything was how it should be. And he was absolutely perfect in everything he did. And I learn so much from both of them, and to call them both friends now is a real privilege, because they are just the best, and they're Lincolnshire boys as well, which always helps. But in terms of making the guests at ease, it feels really good, because I think you never know who's watching your podcast. You never know. And it never ceases to amaze me that if somebody's coming on for the first time and you go, hi, would you mind coming? Yeah, I've seen a few of your shows. I really enjoy them. Yeah, I'd love to. And you go like, shit, I didn't realize. You've no idea who's watching. You've no idea how far these podcasts reach and who's watching. And Fred Merkel and people like that. You kind of go like, this is just nuts. I'm just a guy from Lincolnshire who's just asking questions of some really, really cool people. So yeah, I'm grateful for what you said. Thank you. That really means a lot. And I hope it does show that they are relaxed, and you tell by their body language. Very few sit there with their arms crossed, because I don't. I'm open. My palms are open. My book is in front of me. I'll open my arms out and I'll relax as much as I can. And body language is mirrored. So if I cross my arms, it's highly likely that my guest will cross it. I'm no expert on body language. It's just little things that you pick up. And if I'm open and smiling and relaxed, and I've made them a brew, and then they relax immediately. And I think over the years, they know that I'm not going to throw them under the bus, and I'm not going to ask them a question that they really don't want to answer, because they won't. And it just becomes awkward, and they probably would never come back on the show.
Did this art of the conversation, and I'm not blowing smoke up your arse, it is an art. We both know it's an art to be able to hold a conversation, particularly with people you've never met before and things like that. Is that something, have you innately always had that, do you think? Or is that something which you've just developed as you've gone, once you've been in that world?
I think it's definitely developed. Definitely. The art of listening rather than hearing is an art in itself. But I don't know about you, but half the time when I'm editing podcasts and I'm listening back, I learn so much, because when you're the interviewer, the interviewee is talking not only to me, but the audience are listening intently, or they're watching intently on YouTube. Well, my brain is going, what's the next question? Think about this.
Yeah.
Don't forget that question. Don't forget that question. Don't forget that question. He's finished. Ask the question. Shit, what was the question?
So or an interesting topic comes up, and then by the end of their section of talking, there's about another 2, and you're like, what was I going to talk about initially?
It's 100% that. There's so many times I've been in that position where I cannot tell you what my guest said, because in my head, the hamster wheel's going to try and remember the question that I thought, that's going to be a great question. Don't forget it. And then instantly forget the question.
And all of a sudden the guest goes quiet, and you're like, oh shit, I wasn't listening. What did they say there?
Yeah. And then following on, and that's where that silence comes in that we spoke about before.
Yeah.
And the power of, tell me more.
Mm.
And that's all you have to say. And what happened then? Why was that?
Mm.
Really? That doesn't sound right.
Giving away secrets here, Dave.
Mate, it's easy. It's easy. And it's having the confidence to sit down with these guys who you are huge fans of, because that's the sport, and they are the pinnacle of domestic racing, the pinnacle of, whether it's Dovey or people like that, young David Alonso that we spoke to at Silverstone last year, who is going to be a record breaker, and make no mistake. When you deal with people like that and you get to speak to them, and it just develops over time. Yes, I'm a people person. I'm a social butterfly from time to time. I enjoy conversation. I enjoy learning about people. I enjoy understanding the people that I really like and being on a wavelength with them. And just, if they make me feel good when I walk away, and I like to think I've made them feel good when we walk away. Just making a fuss of people. We after recent years and people not liking handshakes or hugs and stuff like that, mate, I'm a hugger. I am tactile. I am straight in there. Because that's what we don't have a lot of these days. And I like people. And I like people to like me, and I like to like them. And whether that sounds a bit sappy or whatever, it's got me where I am today because of who I am, not what I am.
I think it's quite refreshing in this day and age, in that a lot of people, particularly people who are in the limelight on social media and things like that, they're very aware of what they say, what they do. Are they flying the right flag for that day? Are they saying the right buzzwords? I'm going to say all that bollocks. I don't mean any offense to anybody that's out there that is passionate about any of that. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just like I'm not. It's not that I'm not interested. There's just so much of it these days, isn't there? And it doesn't feel like a lot of people, when they do this, are particularly genuine, because they'll move on to the next thing the next day or the next week. So when you have, I really do think that's why podcasts have exploded the way they have, particularly long form podcasts, an hour, 2, 3 hours or whatever it is, because you can't BS for that length of time. You can't keep up a pretense, or very few people can keep up that pretense. And I think people are gravitating towards it because it's refreshing. They can sit and listen to real conversation, which is quite rare for a lot of people these days. And just hearing people be genuine.
And that is 100% it. I don't know how to be any different to as I am now. I haven't got the effort, the emotion, or the inclination. I am unapologetically me. That this is what you find, and I'm happy with that. I'm 53 years old. There's more sand in the bottom than the top, so I'm quite happy with who I am. And if that fits in with other people, then great. If it doesn't, then hey, enjoy your life. It's not a problem. Yeah. You're quite right, and we aren't in a position to fly different flags or to virtue signal or whatever it's called. And
that was the word I was looking for.
Do that kind of thing. I don't get it. I don't want to get it. And I know it's the modern way and this is the modern world we live in, but I've got this far and I'm doing okay. Whether that's dinosaur and whether that's archaic, I don't care. We're Gen X, and I fully believe in the generations. We're the last ones that didn't depend on technology, and we're the ones that have had to make the jump to be able to do this. We weren't born into this. We've had to develop our skills to be able to have this conversation in my little camera in your studio, a couple of 100 miles apart, that we can do this. We've had to adapt the most. But do you know what? It doesn't mean to say we've left the old-fashioned values that were instilled into us in those days, where it is respect for each other and you are who you are. And that's how we get to do it. So, yeah, no, you on podcasts, you're quite right. You can't really escape from who you are, because you 100% right. You cannot be something different. And especially if you have a niche subject. I couldn't be you because I haven't done what you've done and experienced what you have, whether it's through the bobbies, whether it's through the round the world, whether it's through the European tours, all the experience you have. You can be the best version of you. I can be the best version of me, 100%. And that will do us. That will do us nicely. And here we are, already nearly an hour into the chat, and with so much more to go. And it's going great so far. So yeah, just be yourself, and there doesn't have to be a label for everything. And the same with your podcast when you have your guests. They're the best subject of themselves. So let them talk, let them be who they want to be, but you can't bullshit what you don't know. Yeah. Especially in a niche podcast that like motorcycle racing, where I fully believe most of the audience maybe know more than I do in terms of, or have stronger opinions or something like that. So I have to be really careful of not to. Yes, I have good knowledge of the sport. I wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't. I couldn't do a podcast on rugby union or luge, something like, because that's not my specialist subject. Motorcycle racing is, and I think I'm across it fairly well with the knowledge. And if I haven't got the knowledge, I'll research it. Because, and then when you throw the curveball in that we did at the Molesdale Foundation between Christmas and New Year of Jimmy, Big Al, and Max McRae, that's completely out of my comfort zone. I am definitely not the subject specialist when it comes to rallying, but we did great for an hour because I researched it and I understood, and I let them answer the questions. I'm not the subject expert. The guest is.
Yeah, and you've got a genuine interest in that person, aren't you? And like their expertise and their experience in that world that you're not familiar with. Everyone wants to talk about either themselves or their opinion on something or their experience of something, don't they? It's like, of course, ask me a question about something I know. I'm going to tell you, of course.
Pull up a sandbag. I'm going to tell you a story.
Yeah, that's it.
One of the greatest things that ever happens on a podcast, and with all the guests that we've had over the years, we've had guests that vary opinion because of their persona, whether it be on post-race, pre-race interviews. They only ever get interviewed when they're at work. And everybody who is racing at the top level of BSB or Supersport is at work. It's their job. We all get stressed with our job. We all have pressures. They're not just there to entertain the fans on the banks. And some days you catch them on a bad moment. They can't be particularly great all the time. I'll use two examples of this because they are two riders that divide opinion. But I have this, I don't know whether it's an uncanny ability. Eyes are the window to the soul. Doesn't matter what somebody says, their eyes will give them away every single time. And it doesn't matter how brusque somebody comes across, or you can tell whether they are genuinely a dick or whether they're just having this persona that they have. And two riders who get bad press for not being the most friendly or the most exuberant, because not everybody can be Storm Stacey, but Josh Brooks and Tom Booth Amos. We had Brooksy has been on the show 2 or 3 times. I have all the respect in the world for him.
He gets such a bad rap.
Yeah, he's not the regular happy-go-lucky rider. He's at work. He's intense. But you know what? There's mischief in those eyes.
Oh yeah.
And once you see that, you're like, okay, I get it. Sorry, I keep nudging the mic. I get it. And then you see it. And when you understand how they think and what questions to ask them, that's when you break down barriers and they talk to you and they relax. And TBA was another one. We interviewed him at Brands a couple of years ago, and he is prickly on the TV. He doesn't care what he says. He doesn't mind upsetting other riders. He is who he is. He's a national standard gymnast, and that's an individual sport. If ever there was one, to be the best that you can be. And yeah, you know what? There is that real fine line between confidence and arrogance, and he dances that line beautifully. But when you sit him down and you get him talking, and there are some people that you will never, ever convince them that the person is good. They just have their opinion. That's like, do you know what? That's okay. You do you. That's no problem. If you don't like him, you don't like him. Nothing I do is going to change that. And I never set out to change people's opinion. But if it does, and somebody is man enough or lady enough to put it in the comments that, do you know what? I used to think he was a cock, but actually he's a good guy. I was wrong. I will take that all day long, and nothing gives me more pride than that. For somebody to change just one person's opinion of somebody that they don't like or they've never met them, they've never been in their company. That's just the perception that they have. And then they watch one of our episodes and they go, I really enjoyed that. Thanks, Dave. You're more than welcome.
Yeah. Again, it's the beauty of long form conversational podcast, isn't it? In that, as we said, you can't BS it. You'll see people, warts and all, eventually, especially when you start bringing beer into it. You know, people can't keep that facade or whatever it is that they're doing. Yeah,
I am such a lovable drunk. I am the one that's the headline. I love you.
Oh yeah, you're a huggy drunk.
Mate, oh man, I've never had a fight in my life, and I'm not about to start now. So it's like I've got this far without it. So I'm not about to start now.
I'm the same. I'm a very huggable, huggy drunk. But when I'm sober, I don't like being touched. Like I don't know what it is. I'll shake your hand. That's it. Although I've got to say, in the last, I would say since the world trip, I'm becoming a huggy person now. I've definitely become a bit of a hippie now.
It's good for the soul, man. It's good for the soul.
Yeah,
it's connection.
Yeah, for sure.
But when we get the opportunity, whenever that may be, to meet in person, I make sure that we will do the reach of a handshake.
That's it, yeah, stalwart.
I'll remember that. Not everybody likes it. I get that. And some people tense up, and it's like I make no apologies for it. That's just who I am.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that, mate. Nothing wrong. Right, I think we should crack on with some questions here, because but before you know it, we're going to be at like 2 hours and we haven't started questions. So there's quite a few for us to get through.
Okay, now.
I've started, since I brought the podcast back last month or 2 months ago, I started incorporating this question into each podcast. So this is my question. I describe Brew Time as a relaxed conversation podcast exploring what it really means to live your life through honest conversations with people who choose more. When you hear that, what does choosing more mean to you?
That's a fantastic question.
Thanks. It was GP. It was AI.
One of my best friends is ChatGPT. I make no bones about it. That's moving with the times.
Yeah.
You have to use what tools are at your disposal.
Isn't it crazy how quickly you forget that is an algorithm? Because they like know you better than you know yourself sometimes. The stuff that they fire back, it's like, oh my God, this is freaky.
Nothing makes me happier to be at the age that I am by looking at where AI is going and things like that. It's like, do you know what? At some point, it's not really going to matter to me, so it's okay. We're choosing more.
Yeah. What does that mean to you?
Oh, dear. Choosing more for me is choosing more to enable yourself to be at peace with who you are and the situations that you find yourself in, and to be the best version of you that you can be. We all have choices to make through our lives, and it's a choice to be offended. You have to choose to be offended. It's not an emotional reaction. It's a choice. It's not laughter. It's not grief. It's not. It's a choice. It's not something. It's something that comes from the brain, not from the heart. And to choose more, if I'm understanding this correctly, because I'm usually the one that asks deep questions and then just sits back and waits for the answer because I don't have to answer it. Yeah, the older you get, the more you understand where your point is in life, because you spend your first 20s, 30s, 40s chasing. You want that next big job, that next big pay rise. You want stability. You want, for some people it's routine. They want that 9-to-5 job. They want weekends off. They want 2 weeks in Tenerife every year, and that's great. I have no issue with that at all. But I like spontaneity. I like that we don't have a plan in life. We came together later. So we both have relationships that are behind us now. So we've started again. So financially, had we still been in the previous relationship, we would have been more secure, but we're not, and we don't care. It's choosing more to be at peace with yourself and understanding the world around you. Jimmy Carr summed it up beautifully. He said there is nothing in a shopping centre like the Trafford Centre or Meadowhall, Braehead, wherever, that you will need or will be aware of in 5 years' time. Nothing. And do you know, there's a lot you see on social media these days, and there's a lot on TikTok, and there's a whole heap of crap out there. But there are also one or two things that make you reset. And do you know what? It really doesn't matter. We all came in the same way. We all go out the same way. You have to make the best of the time that you have, because we all know how much sand is in the bottom. None of us know how much is in the top. So to choose more is to choose the best life for you, to enjoy every day the very best you can. We were reminded of that at BSB last year with OJ and Shane. And that is difficult when it comes to podcasts. Really difficult. And somebody, one of our great listeners, Simon Breeze, he posted on one of the videos, not of the lads that we lost, but it was a positive thing. He says, Davey, what you're doing is great. You are creating a legacy for all of these riders.
Wow. Gee whiz.
And you suddenly go, oh,
didn't even think about that, man. Wow.
Never even considered it, because it's all about the now. It's not about posterity and looking back. And until we lost Chrissy back in 2022, it was it 22?
2 or 3, wasn't it?
It was 2022.
Sure it was, yeah.
Oh, man, time flies. It's incredible. I'm almost sure it was. Forgive me if it wasn't. I'm almost sure it was 2022. It was championship weekend. Pretty sure it was. And go back to 2018 when I was doing podcasts and Chrissy and I had become friends. He was riding for Morello and then he'd been riding for Brogy and Mission Racing and somebody was in Superstock. The perfect human.
He was an awesome bloke, wasn't he? Such a
guy.
nice guy.
Perfect guy. And he messaged me out of the blue one day, and I can picture it to this day. He's like, Dave, I want to start a podcast. How do I get started? So give him all the help he can. It doesn't matter that I'm doing, I don't care. There's room for everybody. And he picked up that baton and he disappeared over the horizon with it. He was outstanding. He got the mobile studio. We had Dom alongside him. Grace was much younger at the time when they first started back in 2018. And it was like, that's how you do it. Go on, son, fill your boots. And had absolutely all the respect in the world for Chrissy. That was a huge loss. That was the first, I think if I remember, the first massive, well, every loss is massive. The first loss we'd had in a BSB race for a number of years. And then to lose Owen and Shane back in May at the opening round, that became a little bit closer because 2020, 2021, Owen was dating my daughter.
Oh, Jesus.
So we became good mate. This is where I say age doesn't matter. He was like 16 or 17. And age doesn't matter. You take the mickey out of each other. And he was a super talent. And Mick and Emma and Sam, his mum, dad and sister, great people. We had him on the podcast a couple of times. But it wasn't until, and I must mention Shane and Hannah as well. Shane was a great guy and Hannah's lovely. And sadly, it was her second experience of that. But it wasn't until Owen's passing that all of a sudden that we're on the boat to the northwest going out of Cairn Ryan. And there are messages from BBC this and Greatest Hits that. And we've seen your video on YouTube. Would you come on and do an interview with us about Owen? And would you do this? Like, I refuse them all. It's not my place. But then the darkest side of it that you never know happens. Weird things happen in the comments. Weird comments start appearing that nobody needs to see. And just things that I will never forget. I'd turn the comments off straight away. Ghoulish comments that you're like, hang on a minute. You've never seen, all you have done is Google Owen Jenner on YouTube. And as proud as I am that it comes up first, that's the wrong scenario to be pulling up my 10 minutes with Owen at the bike show, 18, whenever it was, end of November, the previous year. And the views went through the roof, and it's like, I don't want them to. Leave it as it is. I want people to, it's, and then that's when Simon's words kind of hit home. That's the first point where you go, we're preserving something here. And we do have some of the older generation on the podcast, and I'm not going to name their names because it doesn't matter. It doesn't like I'm singling anybody out, but who's getting the tap on the shoulder next from the big man upstairs. And it's going to be up there the videos are going to be on there for the next 10 or 15 years. We're not going to close the channel at any point, regardless of what happens with the podcast in the future. And one thing, of the two things we're most certain of is paying tax and getting the tap on the shoulder. So
that
when the tap on the shoulder comes, and we're leaving a legacy behind of somebody's career and their character, and it's there for all to see. And that was so powerful.
God, I bet, yeah. But then you have that inner peace. Being that hippie again here, you have that inner peace that you're just being you. You're not being anything you're not, And when your guests come on, they have that opportunity to be them. So you're providing, it, if anything, it must be nice for the family and friends, relatives of people that do pass on, that they can go back and they can sit and watch their loved one enjoying a conversation, about the passion that they have for, racing and what they were doing in life. That's pretty damn cool.
Do you know what? When you think about it and you put it so eloquently, it is. And it is something that makes me incredibly proud, because I'd never even considered that. It was just, this is us chatting away. If I cark it tomorrow, then somebody's got my story and it's going to be out there, and here I am, kind of thing. This is me. Yeah. Touch wood on the old windowsill, and I've got no plans to go anywhere yet. But it's part of the world that we live in. It's part of the sport that we have. We've lost friends along the way, and your Keith Farmers and Simon Andrews, Chrissy, people like of their stand-ins, and it's hard. But last year was the hardest of them all. Like, yeah, normally you can never be desensitized to it. Never. I don't care what anybody says. No, you can't. And I know it's a difficult subject to talk about, but it affected me. It affected a lot of people. It still affects my daughter to this day, and she's doing her best and working her way through it. And the same for Mick and Emma and Stuart, who runs the whole BSB paddock.
That's a responsibility for Stuart. God.
Yeah, exactly. And he gets a bad rap for a lot of things, and we've not seen eye to eye for many years. But when we did the podcast with him last year, back in March at Donington Park, something changed. And we understand each other now. I have the utmost respect for him, and I believe he has the same for me now. And I wouldn't swap jobs with him for all the tea in China, man. Not a chance.
No, I mean the pressures you must be under to have that position. It can't ever go away.
No.
As soon as one season's finished, well, what's happening for the next one? What have we learned from this one? And it's just got to be constant.
Yeah. And you've got to want, and as he said on the podcast, I asked him at the time, did it affect family? And he said to me afterwards, well, you know which buttons to press, Dave. And I'm like, well, I didn't do it deliberately. I just asked about family. And you could see his sort of eyes go a little bit glassy, because as much as he is BSB, and the same with everybody that we have on, they've all got feelings. Doesn't matter what their job, doesn't matter what they are, what position they hold, whether they're a multiple world champion, whether they're the race director and series director of BSB. Everybody has feelings. We're all human, and I don't care who you are. Some things do mean more than the job that you do.
Oh, absolutely. And as you get older, you definitely realize that, I think. Yeah, definitely.
You do? Yeah, 100%.
I had a conversation in the last podcast, actually, or it might have been the one before. I did a little reel on it. And I was just saying how, I spent nearly 2 decades in the old Bill. And for the first, at least, decade of that, my life was just the old Bill. It was everything. I was a copper. And outside of that, family and friends, love my family and friends. But the job came first. And it was only towards certainly the second half of my career there, and now I'm out. I think it's just as you get older, I think you develop a realization and an appreciation for what is actually important for you. No, I'm not going to say in life, but it's important for you specifically in your life. Everyone will have different priorities, I'm sure.
And for me, we're not all wrong.
No,
we're not all wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Jen taught me, and it was many years ago, not long after we'd first met. And this is also something else that I carry forward into the podcast as well. And I'm sure it's a quote from Maya Angelou. People might forget what you said, but they never forget how you made them feel.
Oh.
So words are soon forgotten, but you made me feel really shit when you said what you said. Yeah, or something, or the opposite. They might forget why you cheered them up, but they don't forget it. So it works both ways. It's not it's not just a negative, it's a positive and a negative. And that is hugely important. And I think we've lost sight of that so much today with the entitlement and the way the world has changed from the times that we had at the turn of the decade. And it doesn't make it a better place. And that's exactly it. You have to be at peace with yourself. You have to understand the impact that your actions have on other people, because you might be having a bad day, but a bad day might be something that only happened for 15 minutes, but you focused on that 15 minutes and it's made it a bad day. Or you're in a rush, or you've got a poorly family member. Everybody's fighting battles that we don't know about. But with the lack of patience and appreciation that we have for each other these days, sucks.
Yeah.
And that's painting with a broad brush, but you see it more often than you would like to.
Yeah, you do. There doesn't seem to be much compassion for people these days. You know, like, again, very broad, sweeping statement, but people, maybe it's the anonymity of the digital age, of being able to say things in comments where you're faceless and you're not face to face with people. But people say horrific things, don't they? And that seems to have migrated out onto the street now, and people are just calling people names straight away without any thought about, what impact that can have.
No repercussions, because if you have a group of, and you'll know this from being on the job for 20 years, when we were kids, and if we were out in Gainsborough and we were messing about and just a bit of horseplay, nobody, not hurting anybody or anything like that. But if the local Bobby, if old Bruce Lineker came along on his bike and he's like, "What are you doing, boys?" And he's like, Do I need to let your mum and dad know?
Yeah.
No. Are you going home now? Yes, PC Lineker, we are. Right, off you go. Make sure you're home and no more will be said.
Yeah.
But this day and age, groups of kids roaming around and you can't say anything, you can't do anything because they end up as the victims, and there's no repercussions for their actions.
It's a societal thing, though. That's a societal 100%. Issue, because 100%. I think we're of that generation. We're partly responsible, I think, our generation and the ones after it, in that it was the way that we remember it. It was like that, where, you had respect for law and order. I think maybe we also felt like there was law and order, and you respected the old bill, from certain elements of life. You respected the old bill. Not everybody did. Appreciate that. But there was a time where I think the old bill have let themselves down massively, because you can, especially with what you see is going on now. Like the old, I look at the old bill and I wouldn't do that job anymore, because I wouldn't be willing to do the things that they're being told to do now, because I'm like, that's not why I joined the old bill. That's
not coppering.
No, exactly. Yeah. I'm not some social warrior. I joined that job to look after people and be that person people called when they needed help. Right. That's why I joined, and most of the people I worked with, they were good, decent people, and that's why they joined. Doesn't feel like that now. It's just, it's a. God, I don't know. It's like a social thing. Yeah.
It's social workers in a lot of ways.
That was always an element of the job. That was an element of being in the police. There was a lot of being a social worker in that.
Yes, but more so today than I think ever before. Because
it's become very political.
Yeah.
I noticed around about 2008, 9, 10, the job really started to become political, and I started to feel like a political pawn, and I never felt like that before. Maybe it was just because I was getting older and more experienced within that job, and maybe seeing things and going, well, this is, 2 and 2 wasn't necessarily making 4 in my eyes. But going back to what I said about a societal thing, I think society changed, didn't we? And, where we used to respect the old bill and we didn't tolerate you didn't tolerate bad behavior out in public, did you? You know, if someone's effing and blinding, they were like a social outcast to an extent. You know, it was like, there's a time and a place for that. You wouldn't just start effing and blinding out in the street. You wouldn't, simple things. We didn't have phones back then, but if you had a personal stereo, you wouldn't plug in a loudspeaker and play that on the bus or when you're out in the street, would you? It was common decency. And that just, there doesn't seem to be any thought for anybody else anymore. Everyone seems to be very
entitlement. I'll do what I want.
That's it, entitlement.
Self-entitlement.
I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Yeah.
And I'll do what I want, and I don't care what you say. This is. I am me. So I will listen to this.
That just doesn't sit with me. Just doesn't sit with me.
I will sit on a train and I will watch my TikTok videos or my Instagram reels without headphones because I can't go out in public now, mate. I can't do public transport, and like if we rarely go out for dinner, and if we do go out for dinner, and like people are sat there chatting away on the phone, some people are on loudspeaker on their phone in a restaurant. You're like, is it me? Like, really, is it me? It's not. And I think we are the silent majority. I am 100% convinced of that. There are more people that are against it than for it, but it's always the minority that shine through. It's like being back at school. It was always that one idiot that kept everybody back.
But the problem is no one will voice their disgust or disdain for any of this anymore, because the days of you standing up and going, that's not right, stop it, and that person then being scared of the consequences of being thrown out, or if it escalated, the police coming and then being taken care of, that's not there anymore, is it? It's just not there. So people have become very meek and nobody stands up anymore. And I think that's a really going to get political, and there's been some comments about it getting too political on this podcast. But I do think that's a dangerous path to go down. You know, when you, but I don't know if I'm just becoming an old man here, but
no, I mean,
I don't like the way it's going.
We're both. I would say we're both adults. We're both adults. We're not grown-ups, because I hate that. Growing old is mandatory, but growing up's optional. And I maintain that forever.
That's why we play with bikes, mate.
Exactly. I will never grow up. But now that you have to stop and think to maybe what they're carrying or their reaction's going to be. Whereas, like you say, 20 years ago, like, will you turn that down? Would you mind? Especially if you're somebody older than you, you had respect for your elders. Go, oh, sorry, no. Yeah. The embarrassment of being called out on something far outweighed the actual situation that you're whatever situation that you're in, and the lack of repercussions for people now, and whether they are whatever in what situation they are, whether they're carrying somewhere they're not. Or the just sheer arrogance and entitlement of going, no, I don't care what you say. I'm just going to do it. You're just going to have to listen to it. And you go like, how on earth do you come to that? How? But anyway, that's a digression. And how do we fix it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But anyway, that's a very depressing path to go down. Let's get back to questions, shall we?
Sorry, mate. I drove you down that one. That's my fault. I apologize. Not deliberately, but that's just where it went.
I don't take much pushing to go down that route, mate. It hacks me off no end about life today.
We're in the same taxi on that one.
Absolutely. Yeah. And another thing. So we'll go, first off for the questions, we'll go to the clan over on Patreon. So that's patreon.com/TeapotOne. First one, Patrick Hennessy. Hello to you both. I look forward to this interview as I have all your previous ones. Thank you very much. Cheers, Patrick. Question for Dave. Who out of all your guests so far did you find the most intimidating to interview, and who was the most enjoyable? I have to say, I do love listening to the likes of Roger Marshall, Mick Grant, Roger Bennett, etc., as they have so many racing-related stories from way back in the 70s and 80s that I find so interesting to hear. I do enjoy your fellow shows with yourself and Jen too.
So, very kind. Thank you, Patrick.
Most intimidating and most enjoyable.
The most intimidating will be the interview that I look back on least fondest, which will be Jack Miller. Right. And it was Barcelona MotoGP 2016. Ian Wheeler crops up again. He was communications manager for Mark VDS at the time. Jack was riding for Mark VDS, and it was a short notice one. And he said, "Mate, do you want to come up?" We said, "Jack's got 10 minutes. Do you want to go and sit with him?" And he wasn't in the best of moods. I don't think we caught him on the right day, and I was completely out of my depth. I was on my own in Barcelona in MotoGP, in the MotoGP paddock. I was staying with my great friend Harry Lloyd, who was part of Motorpod, who then went to work for Dorna. And when I get to the end of this, I'll explain the Paddock Chatter crew as well, because that's fascinating of where they've all ended up. But Harry, he'd just gone to work for Dorna, and he was working in Barcelona at Dorna HQ. So I went to stay with him for a couple of 3 days, went up into the paddock and got a few interviews on the Thursday. Was the same weekend that Louis Salom passed away in Moto2. And this was the Thursday. So I went upstairs, Jack had done his leg, and I completely blew the interview because he was so intense. And this was the point. You remember when we go back to when we first started talking about podcasts and how you talk to people and conversational skills?
Yeah.
I had a real issue at the time with affirmation of, while somebody's talking and going, yeah, oh, and you did it because of that. Yeah. And oh, this was because of it. So here was Jack Miller, who is the consummate professional, who is used to dealing with professional journalists, who's recovering from a broken leg, I'm the last journo of the day, which I use the term loosely because I'm not a journo. I'm a podcast host and I get to ask questions, which is great. I'm not a trained journalist, and everything I've done is self-taught or learned through watching other people, which is, I guess, is self-taught, and advice that I've received along the way. And it was through one of those points of affirmation when he rolled his eyes at me. It cut me to the bone.
Oh God.
I could not recover after that. And it threw me off kilter for the rest of the weekend. And I still feel it now because I've not had the chance to put it right and sit down with him again and go, you won't remember this, but this is what happened. And it's a pleasure to have you back and let's do it again. I am quite sure he won't remember anything about it. But for me, it was one of the single biggest lessons I learned in podcast interviewing and just interviewing in general. From that point on, I don't think I ever used affirmation again, because you do it in conversation, and we would do it through this because it's like you say, it's pub chat. So you go, oh yeah, and I remember that, and you can kind of cross over each other, and we can go off on a tangent and things like that. But you forget when you're in that environment that they're used to sitting across from Matt Oxley and proper journos and deep questions and question, answer. And I just completely cocked it up, completely. And it was one of the biggest lessons learned. So that for me that's one that I look back on with the least amount of pride. But conversely, one of the biggest lessons I ever learned as well.
It's interesting, isn't it, how much you learn from just listening back, especially when you edit a podcast. That affirmation thing, the positive affirmation. I'm assuming you mean like when someone's talking, you're in the background going, yeah. I mean, it's perfectly natural to do, isn't it? We all do it, but you really notice it in a podcast. And having the break, I had maybe 6, 7, 8 month break of this podcast. And coming back, it's like all the lessons that I'd sort of taught myself, you're having to reteach again because you're like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Simple things, mic discipline, like not having the mic too close, because otherwise when I come to edit and I normalize audio, all you hear is my breathing because I'm too close to the mic. So it's like, you got to, all things like that. It's just learning your craft, isn't it?
It is. That's the biggest issue actually I've had with the podcast over the last couple of years, because we use the little Rode wireless mics. They are so sensitive to breathing, to anything. And you forget that when somebody's listening and they're listening on a train, they're listening in the car, they're listening in the headphones as I am. Now, I can't hear you breathing at all. So you're doing great. And I'm listening through fairly decent tech.
It's because I'm holding my breath.
But like trying to get the gate so that you'll have caught a little bit of mine there. I have to be, it's that the mic etiquette. But you forget that when you have these little ones on. And the most often criticism I get from the podcast now is in breaths and lip smacks and things like that. And I don't have as hard as I've tried, I don't have that knack of the compression and the gate opening and closing and that kind of audio break that when you don't talk, the mic shuts off quickly. So it doesn't get your in breath and your out breath.
Yeah.
And I fully appreciate why people say it, but we try our best and I try and bring it down wherever I can. And Charlie Hiscott was a great help after the Nick Jeffries podcast, because that was quite apparent. But he was a great help in that. And rather than going through and cutting out each in-breath all the way through, which would take days when you're doing a 2 or 3 hour podcast, soul destroying, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
It's
but the
soul
gate,
destroying.
if you get the noise gate wrong, it just sounds so digital and it's a real art. And I'm the same. I have not mastered that in any shape or form yet. Sometimes I just let it go out raw, and then when I do listen back to it, it's like, oh, you can. You sound like Darth Vader in the background, don't you?
Yeah, and then you get it wrong, and like I say, it clips the end of the word or the start of the word, and it just all sounds wrong. But in terms of my favorite podcast, that's the hardest question that you can ask, because as we said before, the fortuitous position that I find myself in, they're all great. Yeah. They're all of these guests have happily and for free given up their time to sit down with Uncle Knobhead to go through their career and actually want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's ever been corralled into it. I have never, ever, if somebody has said no, that always the first reaction is, no problem, fully appreciate that. Thanks for replying. It doesn't happen too often, but it does, because some people don't want to come on the show. They might not like what we do. They might not be podcast friendly. Chris Walker, prime example. He explained to me to my face why he wouldn't do it, and I fully respect him for that. And I've never asked him again. So that if the time comes and he does want to come on, then brilliant. The doors and my hugs are wide open. But I will never ask him again because he said no, and I fully respect that. But in terms of most entertaining and most enjoyable, 45 minutes with John McGuinness. We've never done a 2 or 2.5 hour deep dive with McPine. We did 45 minutes in the back of the Honda truck at Donington Park, watched on by Jen, who was at the door while she was getting giddy because Dean Harrison was having a massage on the table in his undercrackers by the team physio Dean, Big Dean. And Jen is a huge Dean Harrison fan. And she doesn't know where to look. There's a fella sat there with John McGuinness recording a podcast in the back of the Honda truck. And there's Dean Harrison in his undercrackers getting rubbed up and down with oily mixture. So that was the background to that one is quite entertaining. Neal Hodgson, we did a lot with Hodgie with Motopod, and he's become a real great friend and a great supporter of the podcast. That was an amazing 3 hours, almost a year ago. But you can go through so many. James Hayden, you can go through Charlie Hiscott, Parrish. There are so many. Davey Todd's always great. He's He's another one that's a big supporter of what we do. And then I think if we go more recently, Jonathan Ray, that we did at World Superbike this year, and he was fantastic. And I have all the respect in the world for JR. We'd done one previously with him at Kawasaki, with him and with Alex, and an absolute gentleman. There are some people that you think may be difficult if they're not on the because especially at world level riders and different pressures that they're under, especially when you're doing it in the paddock rather than in their kitchen, which is always a great way to do it. Go to their place, go to where they're comfortable, and they will talk forever. Nigel Bosworth, there are so many. These aren't deliberate name drops. These are shows that I've thoroughly enjoyed. Ron Haslam, you never come away from a visit to Roger Burnett not knowing an awful lot more than when you walked in. You learn so much from Rog about the sport, how it works, business, how he holds himself, and you come away from Rog really feeling good because he knows how to make you feel good. He believes in what you do, and he will support you 100%. And that's always a pleasure with Roger Burnett because he has such a different view on racing to so many people because he's managed great riders over the time. Did a little bit with JR, Sam Lowes, but more famously Neal Hodgson and JT, and he did a little bit with Danny Kent as well. But now what he's doing with Ryan and understanding that process and that journey is absolutely fascinating. So yeah, it's a huge privilege. They're all great. There's nobody that hasn't been great. There's nobody that's sat in and been deliberately awkward and it's finished 5 minutes early. The Jack Miller one was an anomaly, and I've been very blessed. I am blessed, and it's a fortuitous situation to be in that we don't have anything that's hit the cutting room floor.
Do you do much editing in terms of it's just raw? This is it.
Yeah,
posh.
Yeah, because I think if you do start that editing process, unless somebody deliberately asks to take it out, they're not getting questioned on things that they will want taken out. Because if I ask them something that they don't particularly want to answer, and then a couple of days later you go like, mate, can you take that bit out? You're like, I'm just creating work for myself. Because I know it's not going to stay in. So it's going back to that vanilla thing. And if they want to talk about it, then they can do, and they're in a position. The politics in a motorcycle racing paddock are incredible. All three major motorcycle racing paddocks of BSB, World Superbike, and MotoGP are brutal.
I bet.
In a lot of ways. And there is so much politics goes on. There's so much he said, she said. There's so much secretive. There's so many smoke and mirrors. That's so the
many
nature
egos
of the sport.
as well.
There's an ego or two. There is an ego or two. And that all part of it. It's all part of what makes racing what it is. And it's how much you choose to be involved in that side of it to how much enjoyment you get out of it. One of Jen's biggest things of us being together and her being introduced to the other side of the sport is the politics side of it. She doesn't like it. It's like, can I just go and sit on the bank? Can I just go and watch it for what it is? I don't need to know the background. I don't need to know that. I don't need to know how this works and that works, or he said, she said. It just hasn't got the emotional capacity for it because she doesn't care enough about that side of it, which is fantastic and refreshing, where some people thrive on the drama.
Yeah, it takes all sorts, doesn't it? It's like
100% it does. It's 100% it does.
Right,
I think I answered them too anyway.
You did. You absolutely did. Yeah. Mr. Giggles, aerodynamics have ruined Formula car racing. Not performance, but racing. Why will this happen or not happen in bike racing too? Discuss. Oh.
That's
Now,
yeah.
I have never followed any Formula One, any of the car racing. I only really developed an interest in the bike racing sort of 2008, 2009 2008 when I passed my test, and that was really just MotoGP. I'm certainly not like an encyclopedia knowledge of it. Over to you, Dave. This is yours.
I'm not a big fan of aero on MotoGP. I'm not a massive fan of the ride height devices. My history in the sport stems back to the late 70s, 80s, 90s, kind of mid 2000s, where we didn't have it.
Yeah.
And the racing was better. I get that it's a science. I get that they're pushing the envelope in terms of airflow, downforce, little scoops to keep the rear tire cool. But these big wings that they have now, the racing has, for me, never been as flat, because the ability to overtake has diminished. The activation of the front tire with the tire pressures has taken something away from it as well. It's much akin to VAR in football, that you can, and if you fail the post-race check of the front tire and the pressure is out of the window, then you're excluded from, you're given a time penalty. And so taking that celebration away from somebody who's maybe had their first podium and the euphoria of that, and then all of a sudden they're waved straight on, or they're asked to move from parc fermé, which is just wrong for the spectacle of the sport. There were examples through last year where the hole that the bike punches now, the airflow behind it is so turbulent that you can't stay close enough to the rider in front to get that drag through. And then if you're not at the front and you're behind, then your front tire pressure goes up, and then all of a sudden you're arriving in a corner far quicker because they're punching a weird hole in the air and you're missing your braking markers. And it's all variables that I think that for the spectacle and for the purists of the sport that we don't need. I know Formula One's going into active aero and things like that. I have a passing interest in F1. If I need an afternoon nap, then once Martin Brundle's done his grid walk and they're into the first 5 laps, give me a nudge in an hour and 45 minutes, and we'll see who won. And it said that's just my. If anybody else out there loves F1, I have no issue with that. And great, we all should have passions in life as well as motorcycle racing. But the sooner we lose like the ride height devices that cost Fabio Quartararo his result at Silverstone last year, it's all out of the riders, so much out of the riders' hands now. Yeah, that can go wrong. That it for me, for MotoGP at least, ban a lot of it, because yes, it'll trickle down to the road, but when the roads these days are made of inverted braille, you can't use the bikes to that level, especially not sports bikes. So yes, anti-lock brakes are great. Yes, there are other safety features that have come down over the years, but for the aero side of it, get rid of it, make the bike slippery again. Let's see some proper racing. And for me, Marquez will still be number one, because he's an alien. He's the only alien left in that field now.
Yeah, it gives you a real appreciation, doesn't it, for what he can do on a bike, the feel he's got for a bike. When you see him, you saw him move across onto the Ducati, and nobody could make that bloody bike go. Well, Casey did, didn't he? But,
Casey was. This is what I said before about when I was doing my blogs, and I'm a fan of motorcycle. Yes, I've had my heroes over the years, and Valentino was one. But when I said to you before about the eyes are the window to the soul, there was a point where Valentino shook hands, and I forget, it might have been Sete, it might have been Max. I can't remember who it was, but his eyes were dead. And I was
Valentino
like,
stood.
yeah. And I'm like, you know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah,
you are playing a game to its best ability, mind games, everything else. When you shake hands with somebody, you kind of please it, but he had no emotion in his eyes whatsoever. And
Shark.
That was the first, yeah, exactly, proper shark eyes. And I looked at him then and I'm like, I see you in a different light now. And that, which was a bit of an epiphany in terms of like, he isn't the Messiah, etc., etc. But for those riders over the years that have missed the majesty of Marc Marquez and Casey Stoner and what they could do on a motorcycle because they had the temerity to beat Valentino. Mm-hmm. And the same with Jorge as well. Mm-hmm. They all deserve the same accolades. Yeah. They're just, all of them are fantastic. And Mark is absolutely, without doubt, part of that. What's the word? The collection of gods. What is it? Not a manner. But yes, he's part of that collection of higher.
I'm from the northeast of Scotland, Dave. I ain't got a clue. No idea.
For the life of me, okay, it'll come to me at some point.
Yeah, pop it in the comments.
Echelon.
Is that what you call a group of gods?
I don't know. Well, that's what I'm trying to say anyway. He's part of that upper echelon of riders.
Gotcha. Do you think realistically MotoGP will revert back to the old days without the aerodynamics, without all the ride assists, everything like that? Do you think it will just go back to engine, bike, go down to the rider? That's
a big call if they do, because it admits that they were wrong and it's taken, and the spectacle isn't what it was. So but somebody's got to.
Dorna are quite good like that, though, aren't they?
Yeah. Whether the factories, a lot of it, because this is it's all driven by the factories. I'm not getting into the Dorna debate.
Yeah, I know. Don't blame me.
They have eyes everywhere, mate. I'm not going down that road.
I know. Yeah.
All hail.
I'll tell you a story off camera about that.
I look forward to that. No, I don't think they will, because it almost admits that they were wrong. But because it is a lot of MotoGP is driven by the MSMA, the Motorsports Manufacturers Association, and IRTA, then they have a big weight in what happens with the bikes. And I think, yes, it will maybe be scaled back. I know we lose the ride height devices in 2027 and some of the aero, so that's a positive step in the right direction.
Yeah.
I guess it needs some aero if they want at the speeds they're doing, and the lean angle that we have now that we didn't have previously, this 60-degree malarkey that we're getting to, and that beautiful view of Jorge Martin through turn 5 at Barcelona just takes your breath away.
It's just stunning, isn't it?
It's show off. But yeah, I think I would like to see them go back to just the slippery bikes, but they will, I think, retain some aero of some description going forward. But yeah, happy that the ride height devices are going, happy that the oversized wings and some of the little bits and bobs on the maybe the rear seat unit are going, and just make them look a little bit more like motorcycles again.
Mm-hmm. Interesting to see what comes from that. We shall see. Cheers for that one, Mr. Giggles. Next one, Grubby. Hi, guys. A quick question for Dave. Can you explain in simple terms what the performance difference is between a superbike and a MotoGP bike? How big is the void in your opinion?
Fairly simple to explain. That a superbike is a production bike. It's production bike based. You can go out and buy a Ducati V4 Panigale, a Bimota KB998. You can buy a Yamaha R1. The silhouette has to remain the same. The engines have small upgrades to them. They change the exhaust. They change the suspension. They change the damper. There's so much that they change on a standard road bike to a super bike, but it's still a production bike. So there is only so much you're going to get out of that engine. It is made for the road, but then raced. Unless you're Ducati, which is made to race and then you go on the road. But Honda always made the road bike first and then the race bike. And this was most Japanese manufacturers did. But Ducati flipped that. They made the race bike first and then a bike for the road. So there's always the road thought with it. They are production bikes, whether it's super stock, super bike. They have a road bike background. With MotoGP, prototype. From the engine to every component on that bike is purpose made for that job. You can't made of unobtainium. Like when you go back to the 500cc days and there was liberal use of magnesium and things like that, and unobtainium, and there's carbon this and there's carbon that, and titanium this, titanium that. Super light, super strong, super powerful in terms of, you've got 1,000cc R1 engine that will pump out 260 on a maybe on a world superbike ish, 245, somewhere around there anyway. The ish figures, you never find out exactly. But you go to a MotoGP bike that's north of 300.
Yeah, it's just insane, isn't it?
It's just it beggars belief, and they have to be ridden differently. The electronics are off the scale for motor. I mean, in fact, actually, World Superbike electronics are more advanced than MotoGP electronics. Thinking about it, yeah, there's a cap on electronics in MotoGP, but there isn't in World Superbike. So the World Superbike electronics are slightly more trick than MotoGP, but they're still GPS based. The bike knows where it is on the track. When I spoke to Ryan Vickers at Donington last year about him getting used to the World Superbike electronics versus the BSB electronic, which has no rider aids at all, no anti-wheelie, no traction control, no launch control, whereas World Superbike has all of that plus. And he explained about going into the old hairpin at Donington, coming down Craner curves. It's slightly off camber going into the old hairpin, and he explained how the BSB bike would do it. And his electronics engineer said, "Don't worry about that. The electronics will sort that. It knows where you are. It will adjust accordingly." And you just open the throttle. And that's the hardest switch for BSB riders, whether it's Taz, whether it's Brad, whether it's Ryan, is coming out of the corner and just crack the throttle. Whereas in BSB, you have to feather it and you're on the back brake quite a lot
to feel for
to
it,
stop the wheelie. Yeah, exactly. That's a big difference. So yeah, in simple terms, one is based on a street bike and one is a full prototype from the ground up.
Gotcha. That's probably, I mean, I think I did know that about World Supers compared to BSB, but I definitely do find BSB more engaging, to sit and watch. World Supers and even MotoGP to an extent, it's not as bad as Formula One for me, but the race is on in the background and every now and then I'll check in. Whereas I do find with BSB, maybe because it's in the UK and some of these circuits, you might have done track day there, but I definitely feel more engaged in a BSB race.
There are 1 from 6 or 7 in a lot of circuits that can win the race. And you don't often have that disappearing off into the distance job that Mark can do so well. That Pecco can do if he's in his rhythm. And World Superbikes for the last few years has been the story of 3 riders, whether it be Jonathan, Toprak and Alvaro, or later Toprak, Alvaro and Nico Bulliger. So it's always been a tale of 3 riders, and beyond that, it's whoever else fills the podium, whether it's Alex or Locker or whoever. They're always there or thereabouts and in the mix. But for the actual wins, the record speaks for itself of who does what. Whereas at BSB, you can have a Rory Skinner win, you can have a Brad Ray win, you can have a Kyle Ride, you can have a Glenn Irwin, you can have a Tommy Bridewell, you can have a Scott Reddin. The list goes on. So yeah, there's a lot more engaging in BSB and 3 races a weekend, the same as World Superbikes. But yeah, shorter races and the ability of more than 2 winners per round, per race, should say.
Yeah. Obviously, as a rider, I imagine everyone wants to go MotoGP, don't they? Or World Supers. You want to be the pinnacle of your craft. But I'd imagine there's also those who are like, they want to stay in BSB because of what it is, because it's not the rider age. It's almost like a more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Pure.
That's the very word I'm looking for. Thank you. Yeah, it's a more pure sports, more pure version of bike racing. It's you and the bike and your skill, and off you go.
You're not reliant on the electronics. Not reliant, because that feels disrespectful to the riders that they are. The electronics have a massive input on how the bike works and how you use the bike. It becomes another aid to winning races. Yes, there are electronic strategies in BSB with the Motec system in terms of engine braking and fueling and things like that. So you still have that electronic wizardry in the background, but it's not as prominent in terms of launch control, anti-wheelie and all that kind of gubbins. There's an art to riding with the electronics, but there's also an art to riding without them, as we see when some of the overseas riders come to BSB and they struggle to get their head around it, as well as they struggle to get their head around the tracks like Alton Park and Cadwell, that they just don't have anywhere else that races at that level. But in terms of riders that are in BSB, the opportunity to move to World Championship racing is becoming more and more limited as time moves on, because of the amount of riders and strong riders that are coming up through Moto3, Moto2, and not making it to MotoGP, your Aaron Canets and Jorge Navarros and people like that. And also riders coming out of MotoGP, Danilo Petrucci, Miguel Oliveira, Buliga was one as well. So was Alvaro Bautista. The focus is more upwards than downwards to national racing. So gone are the days when Cal, Johnny, Tom Sykes, Leon Cameo all moved up within a couple of years of each other. That's not going to happen now. And it was Julian Ryder that said on one of the podcasts, on the podcast that we did with him 18 months ago, it's not Stuart Higgs's job to find the next British world champion. That's not his job. He needs to find the next British champion, and that's his championship. Now, the opportunities, because of the electronics difference, can sometimes be limited. It's a big swap from BSB to World Superbike. And Brad will tell you that. Anybody that's done it will tell you it's not an easy transition at all. But with the lack of funds that we have these days, the lack of sponsorship, and the cost of a ride becoming more expensive over time, gone are the days where I think one of our riders from BSB will be picked up and put straight into a factory squad. Maybe Ryan Vickers could do that at the end of this year if he ends up back in World Superbike. There's a path there with the Honda Racing UK team, and then into World Superbikes with HRC. But generally speaking, we'll keep hold of our riders, thanks very much, and we'll enjoy watching them week in, week out, which, you know, they have to change their aspirations and change their view and understand where they are in racing at this point in time. It's not their fault. It's just the landscape is MotoGP and Moto2 for World Superbike now. Nearly sounded like I knew what I was talking about.
Cheers to that one, Grubby. Next one, Patrick Collum. So a question I've wondered for some time is, given the amount of races in a weekend, with motorcycle racing having lots of shorter races, it's difficult to invest in a weekend. I only watch MotoGP on highlights because I'm simply too busy. My Formula One Sky subscription is probably going to be the same way. Apologies for bringing up four wheels. So how would you look to run a racing weekend from structure to number of events? From structure to number, yeah. So would you alter the structure of a racing weekend to either increase or decrease the amount of races and events that are going on?
What a great question. That's an exceptional question. World Superbike started it by having 2 races a weekend. I think they were the first series that introduced 2 races over a weekend. BSB adopted that later on, or the other way around. I think it was World Superbike that did it first because BSB came a little bit later. I like the 2 race weekend. I like the 2 race weekend when you have one on a Saturday and one on a Sunday. Having a 2 race weekend when it used to be 1 o'clock and 4:30. Yeah, I've been there when if there's an issue with the bike and the rider he has a crash in race 1 and the intensity to get a bike ready for race 2, when in BSB you only have 1 bike, you can only have 1 complete bike. There may be parts of a chassis in the truck and elements already pre-prepared, but you can't have a full bike prepared in just to wheel it out. So it's a 1 bike championship. I think it's difficult because all of these championships are businesses, and businesses rely on bums on seats. And yes, they also rely on the TV audience and the income from that side of things as well. But the main income is coming through the turnstiles. So if you have a race on a Saturday and 2 races on a Sunday, you're going to get people through the gate both days. It's not a practice day or a qualifying day on a Saturday. It becomes a premium race day because the big class is racing. I think for MotoGP with the sprint race, I don't think that was necessary to have one every weekend. I think it dilutes what it is. That's the pinnacle of motorcycle racing. And to have a race on a Saturday and a race on a Sunday mimics the production classes of World Superbike and BSB.
Right.
It should, for me, it should stay as exclusive and just have the 1 race a weekend. It's also difficult for the mechanics, and they're doing 22, 23 rounds now. That's 44 or 46 races. Is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous schedule. You only do 33 at BSB through 11 rounds. So to be doing that amount of work over a race weekend, and probably for no extra money, it's just because we're there, so we might as well do it. Yeah, I think, and the same with F1 with the sprint races. I think it's a bit gimmicky. They don't count as true Grand Prix wins. They're sprint race wins, or sprint wins, not article. They're sprint wins. So no, for me, I think for MotoGP stays as 1 race. There's an argument to whether the BSB and World Superbike could go 1 race on a Saturday, 1 race on a Sunday, but the sprint race there is like 10 or 11 laps on a Sunday dinner. So it's not too bad. They're not full length laps, and I think unfortunately with how busy people are these days, you have to consume it when you consume it. And the way we consume media is changing year by year as well. It is in terms of highlights. There's only, anoraks like me, when I'm not at a race meeting, will sit down and with the patience of Jen, I will watch Moto3, Moto2 and MotoGP if we have nothing else doing, because it's my passion. It's what I love. But people have lives, and they're not as fortunate to me as to go like, well, I want to watch all 3 of those, so I will. But if we want to go out for the day, conversely, we will, because then we can watch it on catch up later. Of course. Yeah. So yeah, I appreciate the question. I understand that it's not easy to consume, especially when you have one of those rare weekends when it's MotoGP, World Superbike and BSB. The rare weekends that happens because of the time difference, how you cram in, that's 8 races, plus Moto2, plus Moto3, plus British Supersport, World Supersport, Stock 6. and ad infinitum. So I at this point, the only thing I would change is I would lose a sprint in MotoGP.
When you said about people's viewing habits and things changing, when you look at things like this, obviously traditional cinema has changed drastically now. because of catch-up TV, streaming, all stuff like this, but also because of people's viewing habits. Everyone's used to instant gratification on their phones now. So you see, like, the way people script and direct movies and, like, simple things, Netflix shows, there's a formula that they all follow now because they know people are watching these films or these series whilst they're on their phone. So they've totally changed how a film or whatever it is, how content is structured. There's a lot more. There's no, like, taking the time to set the plot and build characters. Everything is really laid out bare for people, and it's reinforced time and time and time again. I'm wondering,
is the phrase you're looking for.
Absolutely, yeah. Here's a big red, here's a knife with lots of blood on it. He's holding the, really paint that picture for him. I was wondering when you were talking there, I was thinking to myself, I wonder if they take that into account yet. I wonder if they've dived into people's viewing habits and if they will or plan to change the structure of races, to change how the races are covered and the content that they're creating on the TV. I wonder if it's getting to that extent yet, or if it will. Or is the end user, the person who's going to sit and watch the race, are they the type of people that are just all in on that anyway? So they're not going to be affected by all that. They're race fans.
Yeah, it's like tuning into a football match. You're invested for that 90 minutes.
Gotcha.
In the same way that you're invested for 40 minutes for a MotoGP race. You have deliberately sat down to watch that race. That is your dopamine. That's what you want to watch. Yes, some people prefer to watch the highlights. Some people are busy, and in this world of social media, unless you do not touch your phone, or sometimes you have helpful friends like I do, and they send you a message going, "I'm so pleased for Pecco." Like, mate, I'm in the middle of North Yorkshire on a walk. I haven't watched it yet, but thanks for your concern.
Yeah.
You prick. So, and we are so available now, and things are so available online, and you have a look, and by the end of a race, you know that MotoGP will have the podium ceremony out on TikTok and Instagram Reels, because it's all about engagement and reach and telling the story. But I think as consumers now, certainly in the younger age group, the average attention span is 3 seconds because of this flicking Instagram Reels, TikTok Reels. Hooks are imperative now to get someone to at least pause, and the algorithm will go, got you. Mm-hmm. And then it will start showing you more cat videos or more people falling over and things like that. And that was the other thing you said earlier on that I had in the back of my mind. When we were talking about society and things like that, the last thing I'll say about it, I've never known a society that takes so much pleasure in other people's misfortunes.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's a very British thing, though, as well, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But now it's been taken to the nth degree.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's by the way. That was something else I was going to say earlier on. But how we consume media now on our phones. You can watch MotoGP on your phone in the pub. You can stream it later on. There's so many different ways. But I think in general terms, I don't think sports consumption or motorcycle racing consumption will change too much. As Charlie Hiscott said on the podcast that we did, he said most of the viewers tune in time for the warm-up lap and turn off on the cool-down lap. The filler in between of Susie and MLav, Sylvain, Hodgie at MotoGP, that's where the audience drops off, because there are very, very few that can spend 4 hours watching a whole broadcast. So we go out in between times and wash the car or nip and do some shopping or cut the grass, or you have to work it into your day. So the broadcasters know that there is a spike in viewers when the warm-up lap, within 5 minutes of the race start. Everyone knows what time the race starts. So you're like, right, I've got to be there. It starts at 10, so I need to be there for 5 to, and and get me seat warm, get me brew, and then you're invested in that 35 minutes. And then as soon as it's done, you're like, right, what's next? Got to go off and do this, take the kids out, do whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think that there'll be a big swing in the way that that motorcycle racing is consumed. It's just what platforms you find it on, which again, after last year, is also a bone of contention of people having to pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that has to have an impact, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does. And
it has on BSB, and it's been a difficult time for Stuart because the backlash that came when it moved to TNT, and all of a sudden it was 30 quid a month, or it was free if you had an EE contract, which Jen has, so we can watch it through EE. There were deals around, but the uproar for it, and I won't knock anybody for how they feel about it. That's up to them. It's how they feel, so they can't be wrong. But the backlash that Stuart and the Championship and TNT faced still rolls on today, because it had been on Eurosport for so long that was always included in a package. You did still pay for it, but because it's motorcycle racing and it goes on TNT, I don't want the football. I don't want Formula One. I don't want this. I don't want that.
Yeah.
I don't want the rugby. I just want my motorcycle racing, and I've got to pay 30 quid, but you get everything. MotoGP, BSB, World Superbike, EWC, everything. Everything is on there apart from the TT in the Northwest. So you're spoilt for choice, but I appreciate it doesn't suit people's budgets or watching habits.
Yeah. Well, you're never going to please everybody, are you?
Not a chance.
You're just not.
They please some of the people some of the time.
100%. Right, last one from the clan. Mark Fulcher. Hey up, me ducks. Nice to see Dave on the pod. Couple of quick ones. Who's Dave's predictions for the BSB classes? I think the Superbikes, you might as well use a bingo machine as it's strong as this year. Also okay, we'll cover that one first. So, predictions for BSB classes.
I think that with the current state of play, with so many riders changing manufacturers that are considered front runners, it's difficult at this point to see past a really strong start for Brad and the Raceways team and Scott and the PBM team, because Scott's changing bike but not manufacturer, and Brad's back on his trusty R1. So I think they will be very, very difficult to beat off the bat. We don't know how the new V4R Panigale is going to work in BSB trim. It will be competitive, no doubt, but there's a bit of work to do on it to make it competitive in the first instance. Or it might just hit the ground running like the previous one did and be the super amazing package that it's promoted to be. Ryan Vickers will be very strong on the Honda. Nobody seems to be mentioning him at the moment, and I think that's not the wisest of moves. And Leon Haslam staying on the same manufacturer with Moto Rapido, but I think certainly top two in the early days for me will be Scott and Brad, because they're the ones that are changing the least. And then the rest of it will fight out between themselves. Christian on the Sencat bike, which is Kyle's bike from last year, his championship winning bike. He will be strong. It's just, there's 33 races and you never know what's going to happen. Had ifs and buts and pots and pans, but had Scott Redding been in the championship from the start, there's every chance that Kyle wouldn't be a back-to-back champion. But he didn't. He joined at Knockhill and Kyle was. So all good.
It's interesting with Scott Redding. Like, obviously, I've never met the bloke, don't know him in the slightest, but followed, his racing through the TV. And he very much, he always came across as that real character, almost like he belonged in the Barry Sheen days. And then to see how he almost... He's matured, but I think life has made him mature, hasn't it? He's a father now and he's settled down. But he certainly...
Life made him mature or wife made him mature?
Yeah, but both there, I think, yeah. But it's like, I think he had to change, or he certainly, from an outsider's point of view, he looked like he calmed down and toned down a lot of what made him, the character that was seen by the outsider. That seemed to be placated for quite a while. And now he's back at BSB. It's almost like you can see the old Scott kind of there. He seems like he's having fun. He's enjoying it, but he's definitely an older head on those shoulders for sure.
100%. When he won the championship in 2019, he was full on party boy. And he came back from MotoGP. Oh, excuse me.
His social media was fantastic.
No, it's not. It's the message from the pub.
All right.
That we need to change a table from 4 to 6 in a few weeks. The great thing with Scott that he was a party boy. He's lived a life. He's raced and he's lived and he's partied and he's done everything at the highest level. And I have so much respect for him. And the interview that we did at Brands Hatch at the end of last year, when we said about TBA and Brooksy, we got a few of those as well. It's like, do you know what? I thought he was a cock, but he's not. He's so cool. And it's like, yeah, he is. He is so cool. But he's been racing since he was 13 years old. Didn't do an awful lot of school because he was away in Spain all the time. And that's why he became the youngest Grand Prix winner in history at Donington Park. And that he is world class. We have some great riders in BSB, some fantastic riders. Scott, and maybe put Jason O'Halloran in this now as a world champion at EWC. But Scott is truly world class because he's been to MotoGP. He's competed at the highest level. He's challenged for a world superbike championship. And that's why I class Scott as world class, because he's been there and done it. And you're quite right. The change in him with JC, his wife, and Hudson, his little lad, is completely different. And the amount of time he spends with fans and talks to them, and even if he's got things to do and places to be, he's not rude. He will politely make his reasons to go, look, I'd love to speak to you all that. But he's very much in the Barry Sheen mold, as you say, is like he will sign the first autograph and the last autograph. There's none of this. There are riders in the BSB paddock who don't enjoy that side of it. They just want to ride their bikes. They're bike racers. That's their passion. That's what they do. The fans and everything is a great bonus, but their main focus is they just love riding bikes. But Scott can make that well, along with Storm Stacey, and they are the pinnacle of characters in BSB in terms of giving back to the fans. Everybody does the pit walk. Everybody signs autographs and stops for photos, but they just feel like they take it to the nth degree.
Yeah. That Mark Fulcher that just asked the question, he's a good mate of mine, actually. And his boy, Alfred, absolutely idolizes Storm Stacey, loves him. And like Mark says, whenever they go to BSB and they see Storm Stacey, he remembers Alfred and, he takes pictures with him, gives him something. And like Alfred just thinks he's the best thing in the world.
And Storm's brilliant. Such a good guy. I have a lot of time for all of them. I'm like I said that before. It sounds a bit vanilla, but they're all good guys. They've all done right by me, so I can only speak as I find.
I really like that recent chat you did with Storm Stacey, actually. I mean, he is a very, very confident young man, isn't he? And like almost bordering, if you didn't listen to the whole conversation or certainly let it build, and he almost comes across as arrogant initially, but as the conversation goes on, and you did very well in getting him to open up and elaborate on a few things, he comes across like he's a switched on lad. He's a young guy, but he's very switched on. And when he started talking about, as you said, he appreciates what has put him in the position where he is and what's going to keep him where he is that community, is that fan base, is the brand, and he's a switched on cookie. He's got like an old head on that shoulder for sure. Shoulders,
yeah, he has.
Sure.
He has. I like Storm. He is a character, and he's still only a babby. He's only 22.
Jesus.
He's coming into his 7th season in BSB. He started when he was 16 with Brent and the GR Motorsport crew.
That's insane.
You think he's a lot older than he is, and he's not. He's just a kid. He's still one of the youngest in the field.
Jeez, 22, man. But when you're 22, you think you're a grown man, don't you? You think you're an adult. But
I have reminded him of that.
Right, Mark's got another question. He says, what sport would you add a mandatory amount of alcohol to just to improve it for shits and giggles?
In the current climate? Curling.
Yeah, curling. I reckon lawn bowls. Lawn bowls could get
same principle. Yeah, 100% that, and maybe darts and snooker. Go back to the Bill Werbenick and Jockey Wilson days.
Yeah.
That shows my age. That shows my age. I think on the current Winter Olympic Games, I would go with the curling, because I think that would be hilarious if we were under the influence of alcohol.
I can't get into the Winter Olympics. I don't know why. My wife keeps wanting to watch it, and I'm just not getting into it. Maybe I should watch the curling. Sounds like I need to watch the curling.
I don't know. It's like any Scottish sport. There's always an underlying aggression to it. And you just, it's any, as I say, I spend a lot of time in Glasgow over the last couple of months. And I love Scotland. I don't even get stopped at the border anymore. I just get waved through, which is a feat in itself. But curling's entertaining. I have no idea what's going on, but it's also, you can't not watch it at the same time. You're like, no idea.
Right, Dave, we are 2.5 hours in.
That's ridiculous.
I know, it's nuts, isn't it? There's a couple of questions still to go across on like Facebook and Instagram. Have you got time for them?
Yeah. As long as you've got time, mate, that's fine. I'll try and keep my answers a bit short.
I've got all the time in the world, man. Do you need like a toilet break or anything like that? All good? Right, let's crack on then. So I noticed that when you did a repost on your Facebook, people put some questions on your bit. So I did ask them
to put them in the original post. They get all giddy.
Right, so who have we got here? We have Neal Chisholm. Has he tried to get Susie Perry on his show?
Yes.
Go on. I thought there's got to be a story
there is. We've gone through Alana. Sorry, a massive long pause there for no reason, just while I was searching for her name, which is just ridiculous. We've gone through Alana Fellows, who was part of our Paddock Chatter team many moons ago, who is one of the producers on TNT's MotoGP coverage. And we've also gone through her agent to get her on, because Susie is Susie. You can't, we wouldn't approach her direct. You have to go through her agent, yada, yada, yada. And we got no response on both. So yes, we've tried, and no, we had no response whatsoever.
Yeah.
And
it's annoying.
That's fine.
It's annoying, that, isn't it? I've had a couple of guests who have had agents, and like I've managed to speak with them via social media, for example, where you have actually got to chat with the person, you know, in the DMs, and they're like, yeah, I'd love to come on, got to organise it through my agent. So, you know, sometimes you're like, okay, that's a body swerve, I appreciate that. But then there's other times when you get absolutely nothing from the agent, and the guests themselves will DM you and go, did you ever contact my agent? And you're like, yeah, I did, yeah. And then they go, I'll tell you what, let's just do it. Let's do a date and I'll just do it. So I've sort of had both sides of it, where the agent has just been the bat off, but it's also worked for me in the past too.
That happens with some races as well, especially factory riders, where you have to go through the PR people. And I've been that PR people when you go, no, we can't do it. Very rare we ever said no, because it's BSB. They've got open access. Right. But yeah, when the higher echelons of racing, you can't tap the rider on the shoulder and go, mate, have you got 10 minutes? Because they're heavily structured, and they're so censored in what they can say and what they can't say, that it's not a proper conversation anyway. It's a lesson in controlled bullshit.
Yes. Yeah.
But if I just guff and bluster. If I may just go back to the Paddock Chatter thing that I was saying earlier on, that we did on Twitter many moons ago. The Matt Dunn, Ollie Rushby, myself, and Alana Fellows talk about how social media worked previously. Matt Dunn went on to work for Dorna, and became their head of social media, and also did commentary on Moto2, Moto3, and still commentates on Red Bull Rookies today.
Wow.
Ollie Rushby is with Yamaha Europe. He's press officer for the Pata Yamaha World Superbike team, and also account director at Potsky Media. As we said, Alana is with TNT Sport after working for Dorna on World Superbike duty, and then becoming a runner for BT Sport before it became TNT. And then myself doing the podcast. So the four musketeers that were Paddock Chatter have all gone off to different corners of the motorcycle racing world, and we're all still in touch. And then Harry Lloyd, who was my co-host at MotoGP, my co-host at Motopod, he is now commercial and communications manager for HRC MotoGP.
Blimey. It's a very small world, the bike world, isn't it?
Oh,
Very small.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's why it doesn't pay to annoy people.
Pee on
And
people's
upset
chips.
people. Yeah, don't be wazzing on anybody's fireworks, because, that's the other thing you have to learn very quickly, is that everybody knows everybody.
Oh, yeah. I found that out. Yeah, I'm quite opinionated, and somebody in the past hacked me off, and I was vocal about it. Oof, that's that. You're blacklisted from that world.
Everybody, two degrees of separation in that world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, mate, I digress. Do carry on.
No, it's all right. Susie Perry, I would love to have the conversation with Susie Perry. You know, she's got to be one of the most protected icons of our little world, isn't she? It's like, I remember a few years ago, I think it was it BT? Was it Eurosport or BT? They almost like tried to move her to the side and have someone else come in and take over her role. And it, like, as a fan, as somebody that watches it on social media, in particular, there was almost like an uproar. It's like, no, we want Susie back. Give us Susie back for sure.
Superb at what she does.
She's loved for sure. Yeah. Right, next one, Rebecca Hornby. My question is twofold. First is, where do you aspire to be or grow in the next few years as a broadcaster and social content creator? Oh, that's a good one.
That's a great question. Rebecca and her husband John are fabulous, lovely people. They're great to be around. I have a lot of time and respect for both of them. Go away. Sorry, mate. They don't normally get notifications on my desktop. This goes back to what we said before. It's, where's the path? Where do we go from here? What is the future? What do we do? And it's very, very difficult. And here is a very laid bare observation of the future of off track. Everything on off track is me. The same as it is with Brew Time. Editing, planning, everything is me. We are effectively running out of guests, because there are other podcasts out there that are doing interview-based podcasts as well. You're Chasing the Racing, the Commentary Corner that's just started over in Northern Ireland, which is gathering pace at an alarming rate, and all power to them. Gareth and Corey are doing a fantastic job over there, and I love to see it. I love to see good things happening to good people. That's important in life. We are at this point at the pinnacle of what we can do with these two hands. We don't have a co-host. We don't have a base or a studio to work from. We don't have anybody to share the load with. Chasing the Racing have a fantastic model for that with Josh Corner, Joe Ackroyd, and Christian Idden. And then with Grace doing the editing beyond it. So that's a fantastic model, and they have their mobile studio. The perfect model for podcasts. Their future will continue as long as they want it to. For us, where we travel to people and we do the interviews, and I feel a little bit at the moment that's starting to lose a little bit of momentum. There are a lot of podcasts out there that where people want opinion, but they still want the real self, that's where social media is going. The influencer wave will start to dissipate in the not too distant future, where social media will it will promote organic, real people doing original content like this. Talking heads, people by people. It's as simple as that. It's exactly what we spoke about earlier on. And from that point, I don't know where this is going. I don't know how long it will carry on for. I don't know whether with the resources to carry it on, the energy to carry it on, because it's a 7-day-a-week job. This replying to social media, building the community. I am so proud of what we've built with Jen's help, with Matt Dunn's help, with Ben in the early days. I am super, super proud of what we've achieved. But I look at it objectively and like, how sustainable is this for the next 6, 12, 18 months, doing exactly the same thing that we've done for the last 3 years? And with your point, we tried to diversify a little bit with the off track on the road, which due to an issue with one of the manufacturers, we couldn't carry it on. We were promised certain things. The PR lady changed. The new lady came in and went, no, we're not doing that. I'm like, right. Okay. So that's that by the wayside, which is why we've not been able to carry on the off track on the road. Because where we are here in East Lancashire, we're 40 minutes from the Yorkshire Dales. We're an hour from the Lake District. There's some great roads that we could just ride around and enjoy and show people the scenery, and try and diversify a little bit into that side of it, because I do enjoy riding on the road, but I am not particularly experienced at it because I had a gap of 18 years. So at this point in time, I have no idea what the future holds. And that is fair, honest answer. I don't know what the future holds for off track at the minute. It won't go anywhere. I don't think it has the legs to carry on doing weekly shows that we have been doing. We may look at other opportunities. We may have to look at other channels for income. Who knows? We're in a bit of a state of flux at the minute, and that's just bare honesty. I don't know what the future holds.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because like the podcasting world, I don't know about you, but I don't. Podcast costs me money. You know, by the time you do hosting and everything like that, I mean, I run a couple of ads that, you know, you're talking like 20 quid to run an ad. It's nothing. So for me, that I just do this because I enjoy it. I love it. And to be honest, having had the little break that I had, this 6-month or 8-month break, I need this. This is my therapy. I really enjoy having these conversations with people. I genuinely love it. And it's reinvigorated my passion for it, having that little break. It's interesting what you said about, you know, you're running out of guests. That is a feeling, isn't it? And it's a pressure you put on yourself is, okay, who's going to be the next? I need a better guest, that's the wrong terminology, but you know what I mean. You need to keep pushing the boundaries and
engaging guests.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's also nothing. Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with going back and having. I've had some guests on here 3-4 times now, maybe even 5 times over the last 5-6 years, and there's nothing wrong with that. I look at people like all the big hitters, Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn, and you know the big American podcasts. They have the same people on sometimes 2 or 3 times a year. You know,
because they can.
Yeah, but
I don't feel that we can do that, because when people listen week in, week out to what we do, and then all of a sudden and we've had that diversity of guests over the last 3 years, where we've had 2 or 3, you know, Roger Burnett's been on 2 or 3, I think 3 or 4 times. Reg has been on 3 or 4 times. Jack Val's been on twice. You know, you do revisit, and especially the BSB lads, when you're telling the story of their season rather than the story of their career.
Yes.
You know, Storm will be 3 or 4 times. I've got a list of who's been on more times than anybody else, and who's done a hat trick, who's been on 4 times. you get Steve Day, you get Hodgie, and they start to become regular features. But for me, I like to keep it fresh. I like to have people on that have never been on before. Your Mark Lloyd, your Matt Lloyd, Nigel Bosworth, people like that, people from names from beyond. People go, my God, I forgot about him. And what a great story. But like you said, you get to the point where I've done this now for almost every day for 3 years. There's been thousands of hours of conversation between myself and Jen, and the podcast, we ought to do this, and why should we do this, and what do we need to do next, and how do we need to build this, and everything else. I've been in the very fortunate position that I've had a wage to be able to do this from the company that I work for. But you get to the point where it's like, not be careful what you wish for, because that's not right. That's not what I'm saying at all. You have to love what you do. And I do love the podcast. I love helping people tell their story the same way you do. I think it's a gift. It's a pleasure. And I think that we're coming to the point now where that break that you had, I think we're on the verge of me needing that to go away, to you walk away to see if you love it anymore. The community we built means an awful lot to us. The patrons that help us out every month are priceless.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't be able to do half of what we do if it wasn't for them. But conversely, if I'm not putting content out, I'm not going to charge them 5, 7.5, 10 quid a month, because that's not right. So we have to, there has to come a point where we go, okay, we need a break. We need to reset. We need to go again. And if we have to do them remotely rather than visiting, and it becomes back to being a passion project again, then I am all over that. But at this point in time, we're kind of like, we don't know what's next.
No, I get that.
That's an exclusive for you. No, there's very few people that know that.
It's something only you can not even decide. It's only something that you know, isn't it? It's
a feeling.
But yeah. But I can certainly say I kind of think that's where I was feeling about 7-8 months ago. It's just that continual pressure of every week, another episode every week, and lining up guests and doing that as well as everything else. It was just right. I've got to let something go. So it was the pod, but it certainly has relit the fire, reinvigorated me for sure.
You do a great job, mate, and I'm glad you're back.
Thank you very much. Likewise, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Rebecca's got a second question. She says, it relates to the first. Social platforms are obviously a powerful medium for riders and promoters to attract fans, sponsors, etc. But they can equally be so negative in terms of putting yourself out there. How do you personally deal with that? And what would you advise riders to do when navigating social media or publicity to keep themselves safe and sane? That's a good question.
Very, very good question. I post a lot less on my personal social media because we have the commitment to the community that we have on Facebook and Instagram. So that falls by the wayside. And the longer that goes on, the less bothered I am. Unless it's something kind of cool that I'd like to share with somebody, if we're at the Northwest or something like that, or we're away on holiday, which we haven't been on since April 2023. That's just, Jen works her backside off. She's just opened her own salon in the last 6 months as a beauty therapist. So she's all hands to the pump, getting that up and running and doing an amazing job. So proud of what she's achieved in the last 7 months or so while I've been fannying about with podcasts and not doing a proper job. In terms of social media, you have to be yourself. There's no two ways about it. And to protect riders from it, it's difficult because, like we said earlier on, the crayon eaters that are out there, that you can't legislate for that. There will always be that element to it. You either you do. Brad Ray has a great way of doing it, that he posts little, and they're just things that you can't reply to. They're kind of generic. safe posts. You know, it's the same. Everybody does it. Race week, tick. And like, oh, yeah, everybody does that. It's just be different. But in this day and age, they're not. Yes, they're on TV. Yes, they do what they want to do. Back in 2021, I struggled to get Kyle to do a thumbs up to the camera. I'm not a performing monkey. And it's like, I appreciate that, but this is content. This is what we need to do. And they've all got better at it over the years because they understand that that's the engagement. That's what's needed. But in terms of how riders protect themselves, it's difficult because they can't not be on social media. And social media comes with a positive and a negative. But as long as they can be themselves, and if they decide that they want to defend themselves, Glenn Irwin is brilliant at it. If he feels he needs to defend himself from what people have said, he will bite back. And Hickey does the same, but some riders choose not to. You know, it's words on a page. It's today's news, tomorrow's chip wrappings. So you have to have that mindset to it, or you can fight fire with fire, as Glenn does so well. So yeah, it is a difficult situation for riders, and to protect them is to not have them on social media. But then the sponsors don't get the coverage, and the team doesn't get the coverage, and so on, and the championship, so on and so forth. So yeah, I think that answers Rebecca's question. It is incredibly difficult, but they just have to be the best version of themselves and not rise to some of the inevitable tripe that may or may not come their way.
Yeah, I know Joe Rogan, he just says he just posts and ghosts. So he doesn't read comments and he doesn't engage. But I mean, he can do that because he's built his brand and his podcast up to the level that it's at over many years before all this. I mean, there was still forums and all that bollocks, but before social media was the way it is now, you need to engage these days, don't you?
Yeah,
I think if you want to grow to that extent, you have to engage, which means, sadly, reading and opening yourself up to some of the utter tripe that's out there. It's difficult. It is really difficult. You know?
It is.
Well, we're grown men, but you read some of this stuff and it's almost like playground bullying sometimes, isn't it? Except you can't punch him in the face.
Everybody has a plan until they're punched in the face.
Absolutely. Right, last one from your Facebook. Mike Day, what's Dave's prediction for Top Rack's first season in MotoGP?
It's going to be difficult. No question of that. It's going to be difficult. The Michelin tires, the bike itself, there is so much to learn on a MotoGP bike. It is completely different. So yes, it's still a motorcycle, but it rides very, very different to a production bike. It's so much stiffer, so with the electronic aids, as we said, the rider height, the launch control, everything is different. He is an unnatural talent and an unbelievably good human being, which there is no ego about Toprak at all. He is aware of the challenge that's ahead of him. If he can have 2 years at it, that's fine. The biggest issue with MotoGP and rookies is not giving them the time to develop. You know, you can't all be Fermin Aldeguer that's going to win a race in his maiden season. I don't see Toprak doing that because he's come from Superbike rather than from Moto2. He's no less a talent than Fermin. Fermin is an amazing talent. He had a different road to Grand Prix than most because he came straight in at Moto2 from the Spanish Championship rather than through MotoGP. Super, super talent and definitely one to watch for the next few years. For Toprak, he will improve all year. But then when you go into 2027, not only do we lose ride height, some of the aero, we also switch to Pirelli tyres, which he's had masses of experience on. So I think that will help for year 2. But if he can get a couple of top 10s this year, I think that in that field on a Yamaha as well, which is probably the least at the moment choice bike. If you had a lineup of MotoGP bike, you would be like, you're not that one. and a satellite version at that. He has things against him, so it's just a learning year. So he can keep himself to himself, learn as much as he can. He's an amazing talent, and he will come good. I have no doubt. But if he can get a couple of top tens, then by mid-season or towards the end of the season, I would say that's a success.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Watching that switch across to MotoGP, because as you say, I mean, he's just a freak of a talent, just unbelievable.
Well, look what he did at Cadwell Park in 2022. 4 laps, and he was half a second off what the front boys were doing.
Nuts.
Incredible. Nuts. And a thoroughly decent human being.
Right, cross on to TeapotOne Facebook. Steve Thomas. Oh, is that
Barney?
My mate, Steve Thomas? Is that Barney?
Barney, the photographer.
How you doing, bud? You know Steve as well. He's a top lad. He's
only too well. Great guy.
Salt of the earth.
Much respect for Barney.
Barney, I had a mate who started racing in the No Limits Cup way back in 2000 when did they start that? 2014, I think. Jimbo started racing in that. So I would just turn up. I would do their like social media. It was just amateur stuff, and I had Facebook, so it was like you can do. So we turned up, and Barney was there. He was mates with everyone, the little group that was there, and he was like their official photographer. The pictures Barney was taking, we were like, fucking hell, Barney, they're better than like the ones we see on MotoGP. So we were saying to him, you need to do this for a living, mate, because he was just turning up with his cameras and taking pictures, and it was awesome to see him. I think he ended up getting a gig with BSB, so he did a couple of shots with BSB, and then the next thing I think he was at World Supers, and then he's off to MotoGP. Fantastic talent. Anyway.
Super guy.
Barney's got a question. Who's been the hardest person to get on your podcast, but you eventually got them?
Jim Moody.
Okay. Why is that?
100%. 100% was Jim Moody. He flatly refused to come on because Jim is Jim. He's an incredible man. We've got to know each other very well over the last year, and I have ultimate respect for Jim and his background and his history and what he's been through at the TT, which is well documented. When we did the show with Simo 2 years ago, it's like you've got Simo, the next one is Jim, because they're synonymous with each other, they're best mates, and so we put the feelers out, and Jim and I follow each other on Strava, and I got this message saying, Dave, I will never do a podcast. I'm like, Jim, I fully respect that, no problem at all, and thanks for dropping us a message. And then through Jez Murray and the Molesdale Foundation and one of their open days, which I'm fortunate enough to host, we had an open day with Jim and Simo at the end of August last year, and he sat down and did a podcast with us for an hour with Simo. It was great. So we finally got him on a podcast. So that was the pinnacle for me, because he said he would never do it, and then he did. So brilliant. I'm very grateful to Jim for that, and he's an amazing guy.
Nice one. Next one, Jason Perry. Good evening to you both. I've listened to every single episode of Off Track and Blue Time, and I love what you guys do. So thank you. Cheers, Jason. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason.
My question is for both. What era of bikes do you prefer, and why? Ooh.
Okay. For me, I still, because I'm a bluff old traditionalist and a rosy tinted glassed romantic, I still love the 80s. I still love the 80s music. Thankfully, I've got away from the 80s fashion and the 80s haircut, but it was a very important part of my teenage years were the late 80s. So the NSRs, the TZs, the RGVs, the back end of the RD350s, proper bikes, proper achievable bikes where you just did your star rider riding around the block, and the instructor would step out in front of you. That was it. Yeah, that was it. You'd pass your. I didn't pass my test until I was 30. My best mates all rode bikes. I was more of a fan of racing. so you go back to that era of Rob Mack and Neal Mackenzie and the GP riders at the time, Rainey, Schwantz, Doohan, Lawson, Spencer. That's my favourite era of racing, the two strokes, without a doubt.
Gotcha. What about bikes themselves?
What about bikes in general?
Yeah, bikes themselves.
I have limited experience of road bikes. As I said, I didn't pass my test till I was 30. I had a ZX6R. I had a bit of a break. Then I had a GSXR 600, which I wrote off. And then was 18 years before we picked up a bike from Triumph a couple of years ago that they lent us the Rally Pro.
Mm-hmm. 900 Rally Pro.
Yeah, 1200 Rally Pro was the first bike I rode after an 18-year break in the rain. That was an experience. Then the 900 GT Pro, then the Rocket 3.
Jeez, yeah.
So they were the three bikes that we had that we did a couple of little videos on YouTube with. And then from Ducati Preston with Russ and the boys at Ducati Preston, we had a couple of multi-stradas that we've taken out and the rally. But generally speaking, I've not had enough experience on the road to have that opinion on the road bikes. They're all
got you.
They're all great. The motorbikes are motorbikes to me, whether it's from the 80s, whether it's a GPZ 900 or anything up to what we have now with ZX10s and R1s and all that kind of thing. They're just road bikes, and I love watching them.
I can, as far as racing, it would have to be. I didn't really follow the racing till I passed my test in 2008. So that was like, for me, racing. You turned on the TV, MotoGP. It was all Valentino Rossi. It was just Rossi. So that sort of era with Rossi, and then when Jorge Lorenzo came on, and then Casey Stoner. That's the sort of racing period I kind of really remember. As far as road bikes, I don't think there's a better time than now as for a road bike. I really don't. I used to just love like my Gixxer Thou, that had a slipper clutch and that was it. There was no ABS, there was no traction control, there was nothing. And I've still got that bike in my garage. And it's fun when you take that thing out now, having had all the years and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles of riding, your big GSs and modern bikes with all these gadgets and gizmos and way more torque than the Gixxer's got. These modern bikes you can get on and you can properly abuse. You can snap the throttle on and off, and you can be really quite abrupt with the brakes, and it just sorts everything out, no matter what the conditions are like. You do that on a Gixxer and you know about it. So I'm kind of in two camps, really. I like that, just an engine and the wheels and off you go. But I also like all these gadgets because you can have 180, 190, some of them are even 210, 220 horsepower and 170 or 180 newton meters of torque on a road bike and go out and ride it in the rain, and it's not going to buck you off. So I don't think there's a better time than now, really.
No, I would love to have more time on the road. I would love to ride on the road more. It's always been it's always been a small ache that I've never had, that we've just not been in that position. It's as simple as that. Where we live now, we're in a little semi-detached stone cottage that we adore, and it's got a 12 foot by 12 foot yard at the back. Yeah, that's as good as we get, and we will never move from here. But it's always been a want that's always been there, and I've kind of scratched the itch, and I've written a bike off, but there is no substitute for it, and. I'm grateful to Triumph for what they did, and to Ducati Preston, to Ash and to Russ for helping us out last year. But there comes a point where you go, I can't sustain it. I can't do it. It's too much of a clat to have to travel 45 minutes down to Preston to take a bike out for a couple of hours, to go back to Preston to drive home. Mm-hmm. And there's no simplicity to it. So we haven't done it for ages. And with the change of the change of intention from Triumph, from being super helpful to be like, well, actually, who are you? And I get it. You know, we're not Michael Neves, we're not yourself. You know, so taking
That's
out a bike
changed, isn't it?
for a month, yeah, that's changed as well. And you know, we kind of missed the boat a little bit on that, but it's the age old thing. We'll throw in another cliche. It's better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. So, you know, I've been there, I've done it. If the opportunity comes back, then great. If it doesn't, then I know what it feels like. And as I can make this, I can make this statement now. Of all the Ron Haslam track days I've done, of the race schools that I did, of the road riding I've done, never once have I had my knee down.
Really?
Yes. Never once. That is my biggest, I dream of it. I dream of grinding a hole through a knee slider.
Body position, head position.
Body position. I shit myself round Goddard's the first time we did the Ron Haslam race school because my toe slider caught the tarmac because I was riding duck footed. So that goes back to my lack of experience, and in my mind's eye, I can be up there with the best of them. In the realistic eye, I look a twonk, so I'm not going to bother.
Knee down's bugger all at our level. Knee down's bugger all to do with speed. Because I remember doing
100% is body position.
Yeah, I remember doing like track days and California Superbike schools and all that, and even Ron Haslam, all that sort of stuff. I'd be all like on my GS, putting my knee down every blooming opportunity I could get, and the instructor would just be like, "You like showboating, don't you?" She's like, "If you try and focus less on." Like more on the apex and less on putting your knee down. He said, you'll find you'll be a lot quicker. And
yeah, but how much fun am I having?
Exactly. It's just awesome to put your knee down. It's mint. It was my mate Jimbo, the guy that was doing the No Limits with Barney.
Okay.
It was him that taught me to do it. And he literally just took me to a roundabout, put me on the roundabout, and we were there for hours. And he was just like, death or glory, Brucey, death or glory. I'll never forget the first time your knee goes down. First thing you do is pull it up again. But it's what a feeling.
Like I did with my toe.
Yeah,
awesome. Toe sliders.
Right, only a couple more, mate, and then you're free. Maggie Dave, will you be hiring someone to corral the riders this year? What's the story there?
Maggie is wonderful. One of our great patrons. I don't know what the plan is at BSB this year for a paddock show. I've heard nothing at all from Stuart. He's far too busy keeping the championship afloat and doing everything he can to get a full grid for 2026. Last year we did the Ixon fan stage, as we said earlier on, and it was up to me to organise the timings for which riders were coming up when and from which class. And it took some doing through the week, but we didn't have many empty slots. And this year, because that was Ixon have decided they're not going to do that for 2026. I don't know what the plans are, but I think with our commitment to the Molesdale Foundation and their open days, there are a few rounds that overlap. So at this point in time, I'm not sure that I'm available if they did do it. So it's been one of those experiences that was absolutely fantastic. I've not heard anything from BSB, so and I'm not in the position that we can just kind of wait and see, because we're in a position where we have to commit to other things now. So no, sadly, Maggie, there isn't anybody to corral the riders. It will be 2 Doningtons, 2 Alton Parks, and Knock Hill. And doing the VIP chats in FS3, because that's where we hang out over a weekend. So we earn our keep by interviewing the riders for the VIP guest.
There you go then. Right, Maggie, that's your answer.
Thanks,
last
Maggie.
one. Jack Russell, question. Alligators or crocodiles? What's this all about?
Jack Russell, he works in pit lane at BSB and on the start finish straight, and he's one of the MSVR officials, right. And a fantastic fella, along with the rest of the marshals and medics and everybody else that make BSB what it is. He knows that I have an innate fear of crocodiles and alligators. Completely unfounded. Living next to the River Trent for the best part of 40 years, I never saw one. But nature programs, when the prehistoric, smug, beady-eyed cretins that they just sit below the water with that little turned up grin and the no.
You can pretty much see your skin crawling.
Honestly, yeah, I can feel it.
Wow.
Many years ago, I think we went to, I think it was London Zoo, and there was the bridge over the little alligator thing, and they're only maybe about yay big, something like that. And you're like, not a chance. Am I going over that? I'll go round. That's my biggest fear. I'll pick up and I'll get rid of spiders out of the bathroom. Snakes don't really bother me. But when you start seeing these 15, 16 foot African crocodiles and some of these things that Robert Irwin fannies about with at Zoo, I even know how to run away from one.
Zigzag.
Exactly. Small
Why
legs.
Why do I know that?
Except there you go. Small legs, long body, zigzag away from them. And they're just, nah. Thanks, Jack.
Dave, you're a lovely fella, but that's a really irrational fear that you.
Oh, I know.
For a guy in your position,
mate, I'm really well aware of that.
Irrational. You know what's going to happen? Jack's going to just like I don't know, Punch and Judy, get that crocodile puppet. That's going to appear everywhere on your desk, everywhere.
He's going to go down the Jimmy Nail route, the old crocodile shoes.
That's it. Dude, there's still. There's I think 3 or 4 over on Instagram, but I've kept you for over 3 hours here. So if you're at a loose end at any point, feel free to go to Instagram and answer the couple of questions that are over there.
Our great friend Craig Lowe. I've seen them already. Yeah, Craig's a very, very good friend and a massive supporter of what we do with the podcast and just life in general. He's one of life's good guys. So I'll go and I'll answer those on Instagram, but at least we've given him a name check and where he fits into the grand scheme of things.
Awesome. Cheers, Craig, for that, mate. He's been a big supporter to me as well. So top man. Dave's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you for over 3 hours. That's fantastic. Is there anything we've not covered or any shout outs you want to give? Feel free. Platform's yours.
No, I think a massive thank you for you for having me on. It's a pleasure and a privilege with some of the great guests you've had on. To be in there with them, mate, is quite humbling. So thank you. Thank you to everybody who sent in the questions, to our patrons, to all the viewers of the show, whether subscribers, whether you watch for free, whether you just enjoy what we do. A massive thank you, because without you, we wouldn't be sat here having this conversation with the position that I'm in. And a huge thank you to the patience and the love of the lady next door, because she allows me to do this, and I have her full support in everything that I do. And in this day and age, that's priceless. We've made some amazing friends through racing. We will continue to make friends through racing. Some lifelong friends. A lot of them are in the comments that we had on Facebook and Instagram. And, that's something that we are truly grateful for in this weird world that we live in. Keep living the dream, keep chasing your dreams. Just be nice. That's all you need to be. Just be nice.
Perfect way to end it. Folks, hope you've enjoyed this one. Dave's been an absolute pleasure. Folks,
Bruce, if you've not, so much.
My pleasure, mate. If you've not checked out the Off Track podcast, folks, there'll be links down below, so make sure you give that a like, a follow. And if you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it, you like it, all the usual jazz, and let people know about it. All right, keep doing your thing, folks. Get on out there whenever you can. Look after those that you love, but most importantly, live your life. Woo-ha!